When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back here to Maconi Entertainment, and welcome back to the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series. This is race number 19 of the 2025 season, coming to you today from Sonoma. My name is Ron Mullins, and alongside me in the commentary booth is Dylan Conley with Howie Burrows, working on the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler. Well, Dylan, we are in wine country here for yet another race from what has turned out to be an absolutely thrilling season of Xfinity Series action, but we head to the second road course in a row and a pretty big departure from the race at Chicago just 1 week ago.
Yeah, that was a real back and forth race in Chicago. That's always a track that creates a lot of chaos and creates a lot of issues, but I would consider this track, there's different kinds of road courses. There's some that are user-friendly, like your Watkins Glens of the world, and then you have tracks like this and COTA, which they ran earlier this year, which Bryson Hixenbaugh won. That if you mess up one corner, the whole lap's just messed up. So it's a big rhythm track. It's going to be a fun time tonight, and it should be good over here in wine country.
Yeah, we're expecting some good racing action for sure here from this race. Sonoma, a classic road course in America. It hosts NASCAR action every single year. Used to host some IndyCar stuff. I think the last time they ran here was back in 2018. This track is fun. This is a very odd way that I got introduced to Sonoma. It was 2 ways that I got introduced to this place. One, back when it was called Infineon Raceway, when I used to drive it to heck and back on Forza Motorsport 4 all the way back in the day, and seeing this track be used as a drag strip, you can see that drag strip around about that start-finish line. Fun fact for all of you here, in fact, the old version of Sonoma, actually, the start-finish straightaway and the drag strip were the same bit of real estate. So the more you know about this very storied, very fun, and very unique racetrack. An old scan here in this sim. Thankfully for next season here on the iRacing platform, come time for early September, we will get a brand new refresh version, but instead we have got what I believe is the oldest scan in this sim, where these drivers are going to look to have some fun here this evening. Another thrilling race to look forward to here from this championship. 79 laps lie ahead for these racers this evening. A race that is certainly going to see some fireworks, with some spots where drama can certainly brew.
Yeah, this is a real just interesting track, like you said. Now, of course, I'm a little bit older. I remember this place being Sears Point. But, yeah, it's going to be real fun tonight, and going to be a lot of calamity and just getting hope for a good race.
Yeah, keeping our fingers crossed that we'll have a good race here this evening. Running on the old NASCAR layout, we won't have to worry about the carousel section. We have that short chute that we are running. I say the old NASCAR layout. It's the one we currently use, and it's not the one we first used. I think it was in the late 90s when they finally decided to add in that short chute and bypass the carousel section, which is super, super fun, but a NASCAR stock car that's like trying to pick up antimatter with chopsticks, you really can't do it. But with the warm-up session taken care of, let's take a look at the starting grid for this 19th race of this season. Starting from the pole will be the 6 of Jonathan Delaney, with Bryson Hixenbaugh, the 6-time race winner up to this point in the championship, set to join him on the front row. In P3, it will be Lucas Hoytsma. In P4 will be Adam Benefiel. Starting right behind them on the third row will be Hunter Trull and Raymond Root. Right behind them in P7 and P8 will be Mark Padgett in 7th, and Joseph McWhorter, the Pocono winner, in P8. And then rounding out our top 10 of this starting grid will be Eric Wineland in the number 87 car, and our Maconi Entertainment colleague Kirk Mills rounding out our top 10.
So the driver in P11, Edward Shearer Jr., is actually going to be set to the back here at the start. Alongside him, Jim Schofield. And we go on to the next row. 13th to 14th will be Kyle Ammon and Tanner Marty. We move on to the following row. Matthew Boston Wheeler and Rory Collins. Back at 17th and 18th, Noah Woods and Brandon Hastings. In P19, we will have Tim Phillips will be in 28th. Austin Evie will be in 19th position to round out the top 20.
And then looking outside the top 20, the list of the drivers in this race continues on with Michael Prachik in the 3 car starting this race in 21st alongside Jason S. Taylor in 22nd. Daniel Llewellyn will start in 23rd alongside Steve Benjamin in 24th. Those 2 drivers will complete your 12th row, with Ken Ron and Brian Workman completing your 13th row of this starting grid. And rounding out our grid for this race, which is set to be a tricky one for these drivers. Sonoma, not known for being an easy track. Stage break's going to come tonight on laps number 20 and 45, and of course the end of the race coming on a big round number 79 laps in front of these racers here. We do have random probability cautions like we had last week. 21x is the DQ limit, and these drivers, I have a feeling, will potentially rack up those incident points and collect them like Pokemon cards.
Yeah, I have to agree here. You know, there's not a lot of real estate on this track. It seems really racy, but you can't go too wide for too long. Also, by the way, you'll notice that there is a alcohol theme in this field, and what makes a good Friday night better than a little alcohol, as a lot of the field is sponsored by their favorite vodka or brews, or we even have my favorite brew, water.
Yeah. That gotta be Kirk. You know, him and I commentate a decent amount of the Saturday night full-length Cup Challenge broadcast together here on Maconi Entertainment. Fantastic guy, very funny, and that is absolutely awesome to see the water car out there on the track. I can't comment about the alcohol-related paint schemes, though. I'm not legally able to drink. I still have to wait about 6-ish months to be able to hit that mark, but still, these drivers don't have to wait a very long time for that green flag to come out and get this race underway. That pace car has come down pit lane, the field down, the hands up the starter, the green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. It's a good start from the 6th of Jonathan Delaney. He's got to try and lead them up the hill into turn number 2 for the very first time. Edward Shearer Jr., your race winner last week at Chicago, looking to make his way up into the top 10 right now, side by side with himself and the 47 as they head their way up through the S's, but Jonathan Delaney getting off to a flyer. However, Bryson Hixenbaugh and Lucas Huisma right behind to keep him honest.
All things pretty single file right through here. Oh, if you go back to about 6th place, we're about to be 3 wide here between Terrell, Root, and McWhorter, as McWhorter backs out of that one, as they're going to head 2 wide into the S's part of the track, as we have contact right there between Raymond Root and Hunter Truell, as they're just going to sort itself out. They're just realizing, hey, we got 78 more laps to go, so they don't need to get wrecked right now. Looks like all the cars are unscathed through there.
It looks like everyone negotiates that section cleanly for the first time. These racers heading their way off through the S's into the 3rd to last corner right now. This section's so tricky with that tire barrier on the outside. It can loom ominously on these racers. The final hairpin, though, probably the premier overtaking opportunity. It's basically, imagine Martinsville, but with even less banking, completely flat. And I feel like you're going to see more bumper cars action heading off through there than you usually would see. Shearer has actually made that call to come down pit lane in the number 10 car. But completing the first lap and starting lap 2, Jonathan Delaney still holds on to the race lead, trying to build a gap between himself and Bryson Hixenbaugh. Hixenbaugh, a 6-time race winner up to this point, and as you said a little bit earlier on in the show, Dylan, pretty good on the road courses, was able to grab that win at Coda a little bit earlier on this season for win number 1. So let's see if he can get win number 7 here at Sonoma. Sonoma and Coda, vaguely similar if you squint your eyes enough, and the number 1, the number 7 look vaguely similar if you squint your eyes as well.
Yeah, it seems like Jonathan Delaney and Bryson Hixenbaugh, kind of the class of the field so far. They've been real smooth. Of course, I say that Jonathan Delaney about goes off track, but this is a track where, I mentioned it earlier in the pre-race, you go to a Watkins Glen, you go to a Road America, you can you could have a bad corner and make it up at some point over the racetrack. Here, if you mess up even the hairpin or even the uphill portion or any part of the S's through the short chute even, you're going to have a jacked up lap. So you really need to be on your game every lap in this race.
Yeah, this is that sort of racetrack where you have to constantly be on your toes. If you get comfortable running around here, there's two things that are going to happen. You're either going to unlock a whole lot of pace and you're going to be able to run away with it as if there's no tomorrow, or you're going to find out very quickly why overconfidence can be a bad thing if you're a racing driver. Jonathan Delaney, though, he's got the confidence and he's got the speed early on, pulling out now over a second between himself and Bryson Exenball, and just set the fastest lap of the race last time by as well. Delaney, he's been a driver that we've kept tabs on a lot throughout this season here in the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series. Yet to get a win, though, which is a little bit surprising. He's usually a driver in the full-length Cup Challenge. I believe he actually grabbed the win at the FLCC 600 back in May. But here on the road course, we're seeing that 6 of Delaney really fly.
Yeah, there's a lot of racing left here in this one, but he looks pretty stout here early on. I watched him a little bit in practice. He's been running basically the same laps all night, but again, it's a long race, and once you get the first few laps and even toward the end, you kind of get locked in, but once you get to lap 15 in a row, or you get to a deep part of the stage, it's hard to maintain focus. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a high-level driver by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen even guys that are in the Coke Series that run on every other Tuesday night that they'll lose just a hair of focus on one part of the track, and then they'll lose 2/10 to someone that's just really good and really locked in. So it's really imperative to maintain that same level of focus, not just on lap 1, but also lap 79 and pretty much every lap in between.
And whenever it comes to focus and remaining in a good frame of mind, I like to draw experience from my own karting days. I remember one time running this, it was an endurance indoor karting event up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley 500, run on the same day as the Daytona 500 laps around this track. I think it was about 45 degrees at its warmest that day. It was completely freezing cold, and after a kart swap, I was packed into a kart with my knees essentially scraping my ears in that cart I was packed in so tightly.
Gosh.
And part of the reason why I started to drop down in pace, partially down to the fact I couldn't feel my legs anymore, but also down to the fact that once you start to lose focus, that's when things really start to pile up on you. Here's a move potentially from the 83 of Adam Benefiel and the number 97 of Lucas Hoysma. These three drivers combined for 3 wins up to this point. Delaney at 2, and they came back-to-back at some rather different racetracks a little bit earlier on this season. Bryson Exenball, though, he has the most amount of wins at 6. He's right in front of these racers. Lucas Hoysma, though, right behind the other number 83 of Benefiel, has 1 win. That coming at Talladega a little bit earlier on this season. So a different skill set for some of the best racers here in this championship, but still holding their own at the present moment. You don't need to be completely flashy and flamboyant when it comes to the pace department. Just keep it on the road at the moment, and you may be golden a little bit later on.
There's really 2 mindsets you could attack this with. Your guys that are in the top 10 that are, really actively fighting for a win, that think they're really good at road courses, which they are. I'm not saying anyone isn't. You're going to see them try to push the limits, and that's where you might see some mistakes happen later in the race. But a good rule of thumb, and this is for not just guys in the middle of the pack just trying to get through this and manage a good finish, but anyone running a road course, if you keep it between the lines and you don't hit anything, that's usually going to end up pretty good for you. You're usually going to have a fairly decent finish if you just do those 2 things. You just keep it between the lines and you don't hit anything. Of course, you need to maintain some pace, of course. But if you just do those 2 things, then you're going to end up with a pretty decent finish. But again, those guys at the top, they're not really too concerned about that. They're just trying to get the fastest lap possible for 73 more laps.
Hey, as they say, to finish first you have to finish. I've read that in a fortune cookie before, and I think these drivers will have that just put on their steering wheel throughout tonight. Keep it calm, keep it cool, keep it collected, and if you can be there towards the end, just make it through the first half of this race, make it through the first 2 stages, and you'll be good. We also have to think about the possibilities of having some cautions here in this race. We're going to break it up into halves, kind of similar to what we did at Chicago last time out here in the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series. Very similar sort of deal that we've got right now. Random possibility for a caution in the first half of the race, and very high possibility for a caution in the other second half of this race, unrelated to the stage yellows that will, of course, come out here at the other end of these stages. So there is a high chance that these drivers will have to worry about more than the regular 2 yellows. And at the same time here as well, Dylan, I feel like Sonoma is one of those tracks where those restarts could really get hectic. You'll start to see those drivers break the elbows out, especially if we have a restart towards the end.
Yeah, here the restarts could get hectic. They could get hectic at any track, but here really the only portion really on the restart where it gets stupid is if they get to the top of the hill and they go around that right-hander in turn 2, as the drivers are about to head across right now. But other than that, it's pretty sweeping, or you get down to the carousel, that could get a little iffy. Any heavy braking zone can get crazy, but it's not like a Watkins Glen or a Coda where turn 1 you're going from 4th gear all the way down to 30 miles an hour. It's not nearly as hairy as that, but I mean, it could cause drivers issues because you might see them try to get that extra, try to shave off a 10th there, and then they clip that inside wall going into turn 1. But if that initial start is any indication, I don't think we'll have too many issues on the restart tonight.
Yeah, those drivers played it super clean at the start of this race. We're at that point of the season where I think these drivers are waiting to get a little bit closer towards the end of the regular season here for the 2025 championship. I'm not saying we're not close to the end of the regular season. I mean, hey, after this, we are only going to have a grand total of 7 races left to go here in the regular season, as McCorder maybe going to go for a dive on Truex, who misses the turn down into the hairpin, and that's going to be a rather uncontested overtake from Joseph McCorder. Moves his way up into P5 in front of Hunter Truex in the number 71 car, dropping down like a stone thrown into a pond with a moment down into the hairpin. The heaviest braking zone around this track by quite a significant margin, and certainly an easy spot where things can go wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of places where a lot of things could go wrong here. You have a lot of this is a complete contrast to Chicago last week, where if you go off the track, you're in the wall. You could afford to go off track here, go into the paved areas at the end of turn number 1 and into the short chute, but there's a lot of room that you can work with where you go off track and you're fine. You just don't want to do it too much. So it's a complete contrast from last week.
Yeah, so these drivers will have a test on their hands in more ways than one. Sonoma, a track that offers just about anything you could ask for if you're a driver or a team or a manufacturer. You got those medium speed corners, you got the high speed ones, you got a lot of elevation change, you've got those slow corners as well that feel like a crawl in these race machines. But it's a test this, and these drivers will certainly be tested on many different brackets throughout this race here. But I said a couple of moments ago, getting towards the end of the regular season here in the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series. Next time out at Dover, we're really going to start to ramp it up. Dover, Indy, Iowa, Watkins Glen. So not just 1, but 2 more road courses left to go until we get the playoffs started. It'll be Watkins Glen, Daytona, followed by Portland and Gateway until we get to the start of the playoffs. And after that, only going to be 1 more road course track for the rest of it. That coming in the third race of the playoffs at the Charlotte Roval. So this will be a nice little picture to see exactly how well these racers can do, and maybe even have the possibility of that streak continuing on. We've had 2 road courses up to this point, and we may end up having... Well, we've already had 2 separate road course winners up to this point in the season. Let's see if we can make that streak stretch out a little bit to 3-3.
I mean, it's a full possibility to happen, but you talk about that remaining schedule. You have Dover, Indy, Iowa, Watkins Glen, Daytona, Portland, Gateway. That's 7 completely different tracks. The 2 that, they're going to be lumped into the same thing as a road course, Portland and Watkins Glen, are night and day. Portland, one of the newer tracks on the surface here in iRacing. That turn 1's a booger. I mean, it's a handful to get through. That first section, I mean, you see it in the real-life Xfinity race. I mean, they've tore up a lot of race cars there in that turn 1 and 2 section at Portland, but you see IndyCar race there. You see a bunch of newer series go there. It's good to have that track scanned into the surface. That was one of the last tracks that NASCAR really uses that wasn't in here, but I mean, this is a good chance for those guys to build up a little bit of a points lead or even get a win here for those guys that seem to think that they're pretty good at road courses or ones that have already got a road course win just trying to stockpile.
So we take a look at a replay to see Kyle Amon lose it down into turn number 10. A quick little mistake. Doesn't go off the track too badly, but that'll allow Tanner Marty in the number 29 car to slip his way up into 12th. Those small little mistakes can make a huge difference around here. Around a track that is super unforgiving in terms of the runoff area as well. You got grass all around here. It does look like gravel, but it is not gravel. It is truly just grass, as we see Kirk Mills getting moved on an Eric Wineland, who is very slow, heading his way off through the mid-sector, through into turn number 8, into 9 right now. Not sure whether or not he has some sort of slowdown penalty, potentially. Don't usually have to talk about this here in this series with the ovals that we run at, but here on the road course, do have to worry about these drivers picking up a slowdown, so may not be the first time that we see that throughout tonight. Eric Wineland dropping down a little bit. Wineland here in Wineland, wine country here at Sonoma, and I will credit you, Dylan, for giving me that idea to say that pun during this show.
Well, we're in Wineland, and Eric Wineland's having a pretty good race right now. I've been watching this 17 Kyle Amon earlier, if we could get a pretty decent picture of him. You know, since he went off track there, it had a little issue. That car has just been evil. That's another thing that drivers will have to manage here. If they have any kind of, screech of the tires, any kind of locking of the brakes, that's going to mess your tires up. That's going to make them hotter. That's going to create the car to be, Darrell Waltrip used to call it evil. So this car is going to be kind of evil for a couple laps while Kyle's got to manage his temperatures there. You'll see a lot of heavy braking zones where he's got to get back in the gas, like coming back here through this corner. Down in turn number 5, the car's real loose when it gets back on the gas. But also that happens as general wear happens, but the more that you slide the car, the more that you lock up the brakes and the tires stop spinning while the car's moving, that's where it can create issues for the car and the tires.
Yeah, managing the Goodyears on your race car is a very good key to victory here today. If you have tires that are absolutely cataclysmically angry with you, not going to be a recipe for victory in any way, shape, or form. So I think these drivers will have to manage that tire situation all throughout this race. Don't get them too sad. You don't want to take it too easy either at risk of losing time. It's a balancing act, and these drivers have to strike that balance as well as they possibly can. Quick little weather update for all of you here during this race as well. We are under the California sun. We see some moves heading down into the hairpin. That's a car, so I believe that's Steve Benjamin on the high side, letting those racers go by. But I was just going to raise that the track and ambient temperatures rather all right as well. As we see side-by-side racing down that start-finish stretch. That's a 3, getting a move done in a rather smooth fashion off through that section. Of course, now as soon as they're not side by side anymore, that's when my computer finally decides to work well with me and I can pull up the production feed again. But yeah, 112 degrees Fahrenheit is that current track temperature, which I gotta say, Dylan, I would personally describe as moderately toasty.
Yeah, and I think you wanted a road course. I think you would actually prefer it to be a little bit hotter because if it's hotter, that means less grip, but you're able to slide a little bit more and just create more speed all throughout the track. Of course, the colder it is, the more gripped up the tires will be to the racetrack. You want that at your 1.5 miles, like a Kansas or Las Vegas or places like that, or even at short tracks where there's a lot of grip. But here, I think you're okay with the track being a little toasty because you want to be able to slide around a little bit, but again, not too much like the 17 car was earlier. But you want to have a little free range of motion, I guess you'd say, while you go around this racetrack. And we have these big sweeping corners where I don't want to even say that you drift through the corners, but it helps you get through a lot of these S's right here.
Yeah, and those S's super vital to run around here as well. You think of this track, and you can see in the bottom right of our screen how a vast majority of the track is really taken up by S curves. You've got from turn 2 all the way through into turn number 5 when you enter the short chute, and then from the exit of 6 all the way through to the exit of turn number 10. Pretty much, I won't even say half this racetrack. I'd say well over half this racetrack taken up with S's, where it's either the right side tires getting pummeled or the left side tires getting pummeled. It's a stretch for these tires for sure. So I have a feeling that the strategy content will be super important here as well. Getting towards the end of this stage here, should be noted that Jonathan Delaney has built up that gap to himself and Bryson Hixenball to 3.5 seconds. And if he keeps up the same pace, he may be able to get that gap to 5 seconds by the end of the stage here in about 10 laps time. Delaney seems to be on rails. Hixenball has pulled away a little bit from Adam Benefiel. Hoytsma and Joseph McWhorter now found in a bit of a scrap as well. That would be for P4 and P5. I think that number 97 of Hoytsma, despite having a very good starting spot, since then he's dropped down. Now, I'm not sure if it's been a series of mistakes for the 97 or just a lack of pace at the present moment, but he's feeling the burn at the moment just to remain firmly inside the top 5.
No, I would agree. This track is also very unbalanced. You talk about going to the left, going to the right. It's not like it's even 6-6 down the middle. You're going to go to the left 7 times, and you're going to go to the right 5, or you're going to go to the right 5 times and to the left 7 times. So you really want a car that's kind of more balanced. I mean, do you want a car that's balanced? Do you want a car that's better through the right-handed corners, through the left-handed corners? That's a big decision that these drivers need to get through and decide for themselves. Is okay, because that's 3 really big things. Again, I mentioned it from our TV counterparts to talk about it. You know, if you have a car that just sucks when it's turning right, it's probably going to be okay turning left. If you have a car that doesn't turn left really well, it might turn right better. But if you have a perfectly balanced car, that's going to be where in my personal opinion, I think you might be okay, but you might see drivers gamble and say, hey, I might be better through the left-handed portions versus the right-handed portions, or vice versa.
Yeah, and that's one big thing when it comes to the series as well, is the compromise when it comes to setups on the road courses, because every single one that we've got completely different. As we saw that moment heading down into the chute, it's a move from McWhorter. Lap car getting involved in all of that drama as well. They need to load up a replay to see that as they headed their way down into turn number 5. An okay overtaking opportunity if you're really feeling brave. But outside of that, don't usually see that racing play out too much through there. We'll take a look at this moment. They head their way out of 4, going up the hill. There's the number 39 car. Not entirely sure who that is. They're on the...
That's Rory Collins, I believe.
Rory Collins, yeah, thank you very much for that. So you can see Collins kind of checking up not Hixenball, that's a 97 of Hoytsma, and then the 73 McWhorter's just going to take advantage of that opportunity. I feel bad for the 39, though, if I'm being completely honest, because through that section, I thought when they were coming out of turn number 4, it was actually they were coming out of turn number 2 there. So catching up to lap traffic through the opening series of corners, I don't think there is a more bad spot for both the racers looking to lap the traffic and the traffic about to be lapped.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what series, you're going to have drivers that are struggling around here. They're just wanting to piddle around and just get all the laps in and get out of here real quick. But you look at the 39 of Rory Collins right now. He's running a 128. The leaders are running 118. So these guys that are in the back of the pack, the 39, the 35, 53, all these guys, I mean, they're nearly 10 seconds off the pace here. And that's going to play a factor in a lot of these. I mean, they're entitled to their space on the racetrack as well, but the worst thing that you can be is slow and in the way. You could be slow, that's okay. You could be in the way, that's also okay. But if you're slow and in the way, that's where it could create issues for a lot of drivers trying to lap them.
See, when it comes to that, I am slow, which is the reason why I am commentating. So I can share my general slowness with the other people who tune into these broadcasts. See, it works. It's a symbiotic sort of deal. I can get out of these drivers' hairs out there on the racetrack. If I ever did a race that was being broadcasted, people would be laughing their ears off, seeing the sort of stuff that I would get out there on the racetrack. So I will say, your producer is slower here than both commentators. My dad always gives me a bit of a rib kicking, basically saying, why do you keep saying you're a very slow driver? I don't like bragging about myself too much. I think it was regional championships back in my karting days. I'm not a terrible driver. Compared to these racers, though, in the sim, I am not very good, which is the reason why I swapped out my wheel for a microphone. These racers, though, running strong around this track and still maintaining some pretty good lap times. I will even say, I think we may have a battle potentially flaring up involving Bryson Hixenball, Adam Benefield. That's 0.7 of a second between those racers, slot in P2 and P3. Benefield, the two-time race winner up to this point, currently reeling in the only other driver thus far in this championship to get multiple race wins. So these two, nose to tail, as it usually is, but they're not battling for a win. Instead, they're battling for the final 2 podium spots right now.
Yeah, I've been watching the last couple laps, and Delaney's just kind of in his own little area code, but it's really just been kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts. I mean, it's not like Delaney's just gapping him. I mean, he's about a tenth or 2 tenths faster every lap, but, you know, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you add that up over 5 laps, that's a full second. And then if you add it up over this stage, you know, that's why this gap's about at 5 seconds or so. But this is a good battle shaping up for second and third. But the other thing with, if I'm Bryson Hixenbaugh and Adam Benefield, I mean, this race isn't over. They still have a chance to win. I mean, who knows what happens on restarts if Delaney messes up. But the good thing is with the stage racing, you can kind of take mental notes. You can say, okay, well, this didn't work at the start of this stage, or this didn't work at the end of this stage. I'm going to try something different. So that really gives you, it's almost like a mulligan in golf. You know, if you hit a bad shot off the tee, you can take a mulligan and say, well, I won't do that again. You know, there's more wind than you thought is. Bryson Hixenbaugh is going to come down pit road here and pit before the end of the stage. He's going to clip the wall as he goes down pit road here, and I believe he's okay, but he got in just before the pit entrance closed, so I think this is going to be a good strategy call for Bryson Hixenbaugh. He's going to have to pit, and he's going to restart out in the lead to clean air.
Yeah, I like this call from Bryson Hixenball. He has been in situations like this before throughout this season where he may have a quick car, but he doesn't have the quickest car. So what he does is he decides to cook up a different strategy, just try and do something else compared to the racers around him, and it's worked out pretty well. I mean, that's part of the reason why he has 6 wins up to this point. He's had bad, fast race cars, and has had some very good strategies. 12, 14, 15, nearly 14.6 seconds stopped in his pit stall, 42.4 overall down. One of the longest pit lanes here in the NASCAR world and in sim racing, period. The Sonoma pit lane, especially in a car that does not have a pit limiter, is probably just as, if not even more terrifying than the racetrack itself.
Now, I remember it used to be even worse. They used to have what they call Gilligan's Island that'd be on the right side of the front stretch here, where the pit stalls, they only had 36 pit stalls, so they had to put the last 7 cars in the field over in that section. What they do, it was the shortest pit road in NASCAR by a lot, but what they do is NASCAR officials would hold the drivers at the end of pit road for 30 seconds, or in their pit stall or the end of pit road, I can't remember exactly, and they would just hold them and then wait and then let them go, because that made up the time, essentially, that would have been made if they had gone through the other pit road. But now, since they've got rid of that, they did some renovations of this track in the late 2000s into early 2010s and added enough pit stalls to be able to suit a full NASCAR field here.
See, I always thought for the longest time that Gilligan's Island was something they only did for 1 year and 1 year alone. Then as the years have gone on, I've realized that was a somewhat common occurrence here at Sears Point, Infineon, Sonoma Raceway. Insert the name of the next sponsor that comes along and sponsors this racetrack. Who knows? Maybe we'll have another Echo Park track. I'm getting flashbacks to the Atlanta race a couple of weeks ago here in this series. We were doing that race at Echo Park Speedway in Echo Park City, Echo Park State, in the Echo Park states of Echo Park. But these drivers, far away from that, they're here at Sonoma, banging curbs and having a lot of fun. Infineon is the biblically, yeah, I absolutely adore the name Infineon. I remember that it was always such a cool name as well. Even though it was a sponsor's name, it was still absolutely awesome to say whenever I was sharing with my dad whatever I was doing on Forza Motorsport 4 back in the day. I'm driving around Infineon, and insert a little bit of a lisp like I used to have as a kid. You've got a spot-on impression as to how I sounded a matter of about 15 years ago. Jim Shoefield, though, on track for a P10 finish, if he can keep it on the road first things first. Holy cow, that was a beautiful slide as he headed his way out of that section. Jonathan Delaney going to be grabbing the stage win at the end of all of this. It should be noted here in this series that the stage breaks do not come until the end of these laps for most of the field. And you can see now the yellow has come out, signifying the end of stage number 1 here for race number 19 of the 2025 Friday Night Lights Series. And Jonathan Delaney winning the stage. Adam Benefield 8.8 seconds back in P2. You know how I said that quote that he was nearly 5 seconds up when he was only 3.5? I was like, who knows? He could be up 5 by the end of the stage. He doubled that by 3, so well done to Benefield to finish in P2 at the end of that stage. Still a very valiant effort. McWhorter slotted in P3. Lucas Hoisma classed in 4th. Hunter Truel in P5. Raymond Root, I don't think we talked about it all throughout that first stage in the number 91 car, is classed in P6. Mark Paget in 7th. Kirk Mills in 8th. Eric Wineland and Jim Shoefield round out your top 10 at the end of that first stage. But Delaney, clearly the class of the field, but Adam Benefield, I think, is the only driver who's able to keep him somewhat honest, because he was the only driver within 10 seconds of him.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. You know, it's really been a 3-horse race so far, but 1 horse is a couple paces ahead. But these two, like I said, you still got over 50 laps to go here. I mean, something could happen. You know, lap traffic could happen. Jonathan could have an issue shifting, you know, what have you. So, I mean, this race is far from over. Plus, I'll guarantee all these drivers are taking mental notes in their head like, okay, like I said earlier, this didn't work at the start of this stage. This didn't work at the end of this stage, or what have you. Or I wish I hadn't overdriven those 5 laps right there. I hadn't gotten loose there. They're obviously going to take notes, and you're going to see probably a more competitive second stage.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of drama we've got here in stage number 2. We still have that possibility of a non-stage related yellow coming out. There is a random chance yellow here in these road course races, so we may have to think about that rearing its ugly head for some, beautiful head for some others who are looking for a break. Now maybe see the strategy content rear its head. We saw Bryson Ixtaball make that call to come down pit lane right towards the end of that stage, but here come the masses. You can see the 6 of Delaney leading him down pit lane. The 83 of Adam Benefield going to be staying out of the pits, and I gotta wonder exactly what he's cooking up there, because those tires have got to be in ruins.
Yeah, I think he's banking on possibly there being a random yellow come out in this next stage, and he's just trying to split it, because you can still split this race, I think, into 3 pieces still. Some might try to pit 4 times, but I don't think you could just make it just on one stop in this race. But that's a real interesting strategy call. I thought for sure that there would be only one person stay out. I thought Bryson Hicksonball would be staying out, but this is a point where you're Bryson, you're like, man, he's got to be in a good spot right now, because he's got fresh tires and he's going to be starting on the front row.
As you can see, the 6 of Delaney, he's going to be leading the field out of pit lane, rejoining a little bit farther in the back of the pack. So interesting to see how many racers have decided to stay out here. That is very intriguing. I think the point that you raised there, Dylan, talking about these drivers banking on the possibility of there being that random chance caution flag coming out rather early on into this stage. I think drivers are either banking on that, or they're banking on there being some sort of incident. I think we got off rather scot-free on the initial start of this race. The drivers kept it clean, they kept it smooth. Really, nobody got struck by a falling anvil at the start of this race. But now that we're in stage 2, I think these drivers may be a little bit frustrated with some people in this field if they got raced in their minds a little bit dirtier than they probably should have. Let's just wait and see how these drivers treat the start of this stage. But there are certainly some that are putting a bit more money on there being a crash here than others.
I think you're right. I think Adam Benefield, he's going to come down pit road, and Hicksonball's going to... Okay. Wow. So we got a message that he missed pit road the first time because he was looking at his phone. So, ladies and gentlemen, be sure do not text and drive, even in the sim racing world, because bad stuff like that can happen.
Oh no, and it gets even worse for the 83 of Adam Benefiel. You can see him trundling his way down pit lane at the present moment. You know how I said that the pit lane is really treacherous around here? The lack of any sort of pit limiter in these Xfinity cars? Yeah, I think he just got whacked with a black flag, probably for pit lane speeding. So, after... I'm not even sure what to say about missing pit lane by looking at your phone, but things going to go from bad to worse for Adam Benefiel. So, you know how I said that he was really the only person that I feel like could challenge the 6 of Jonathan Delaney? You can take that, what I said, print it out, and throw it into the trash.
Yeah, I don't think the penalty was necessarily him speeding. I think it was he entered a closed pit. If you pit the first lap, you can come down and pit the second lap when the pits are quote unquote closed. But yeah, he came down a closed pit road. But I mentioned that in the pre-race. It's about focus. I mean, even the laps under caution here, you got to focus. You can't lose that focus. You can't lose that train of thought. I mean, it's something as simple as that. Like, I mean, I like the dude, but why we're checking our phone here in a league race? I mean, that probably just cost you a chance at a pretty decent finish.
You know, I gotta say, having somebody miss pit lane because they're looking at their phone, I'm not sure if that is the funniest racing driver's excuse I've heard in my entire life, and this is fresh coming from me after I said one time years ago that the reason why I was slow on an indoor electric go-kart track was because of a misfire. So I'm an expert when it comes to bad racing driver's excuses, but wow. Yeah, this is going to be odd here for this restart. Looking at that pace car pulling off pit lane, the field not really packed in at all, so it's going to be a spread out restart with some drivers basically halfway on the other side of the racetrack. When we get the green flag out here to begin stage number 2, we're back racing here at Sonoma, and Bryson Ixenball going to get off to a flyer, but here comes the 6 of Jonathan Delaney. He's on slightly newer tires. Let's see how he try and tax this. You can see he gets oh so close to the back of that number 63 car up the hill into turn number 2. Ixenball still holds on to it, but Delaney is there to pounce.
Yeah, I think we got a little more clarification on that. I was correct. I think it's because Adam Benefiel pitted while the pits were closed, but that penalty has been waived now. He has essentially an EOL, but I noticed like the back third of the field still wasn't caught up here on the restart, and that's another thing in this. This is another tame restart because everyone's kind of all on their own right now.
Oh, as you can see, the side-by-side racing involving the 17 of Kyle Amon. I believe that was the 06 of Matthew Boston Wheeler as they headed their way off through the mid-sector down into turn number 6, I believe it was. Incredible stuff between those two. They managed to keep it clean as they head their way off through into turn number 11 at the front. Ixenball still holds on to it, but Delaney there to pounce still. You see the gap between those cars. Less than a car length as they head their way through the hairpin. Side-by-side racing and a dive there from the 03. That's a successful move from Austin Evie, potentially in that regular Bud car. That's the usual paint scheme he runs, even though it is beer night here in the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series. He's still trying to run it strong around the outside. The 47 of Jim Shoefield with the back end of the car out wildly through turn number 1, and he's now got a side-by-side battle with himself in the 10 of Edward Scherer Jr. Scherer Jr., the driver who was rather dominant last time out at Chicago, not really showing that same pace here at Sonoma. Still running strong, holding on to the final spot inside the top 10 at the present moment, but I haven't seen race-winning speed from him just yet. Now, we got a long time left to go. I just haven't seen that same spark that I saw on the street circuit 1 week ago.
Yeah, it's a road course. There's different qualities. If you could drive a road course, you could drive a road course, whether it's a more user-friendly one or if it's one kind of like this, but again, it's a contrast of two styles. I mentioned this earlier. You know, you got a lot of room to play with here, even though it doesn't seem like it. You have, let me rephrase that, you have a lot of paved room to play with here. I mean, you can go off into the grass here, but if you go off track at the Chicago street course, I mean, you're in the wall. So, I mean, that's a big thing. You know, you could kind of overdrive here, and at worst, you'll get a 1X, and you might clip a barrier, you might clip somebody else, but all in all, you'll be okay. But if you did that last week, you were in some trouble.
Yeah, that's a great point that you raised there, talking about the differences between this track and the one we had 1 week ago. Even though this track is old school, it is unforgiving with some barriers that loom ominously in those tire bundles around this racetrack. Let's face it, in iRacing, the tire barriers don't work like they do in real life. The tire barriers really resemble white dwarf stars instead of soft barriers. As another slide, a big couple of moments for the 47 of Shoefield. That car is not driving well at all, the 83. That's a good move from Benefield. It looks like we're nearly going to see Matthew Boston Wheeler follow him through to make his way up into 13th, and Jim Shoefield sent him down into P14. That 47 car, though, driving like a declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo. He is struggling out there at the moment.
A declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo. That's a new one. That's pretty good. Wow. Did you just like come up with that on your own, or?
Oh, I've been saying that for years. Howie can attest to that.
Wow. That's pretty good. I'll have to add that.
Yeah, there we go. Add that to the Ronisms folder. That poor folder.
I'm sure that's a very full folder. One thing I've done, not to change topics here from the cat being declawed going up the igloo. Things are getting really spread out here. It's almost more spread out than it was on the initial start because, like I said, you had about a third of the field that wasn't caught up to the tail end of the pack here when we restarted. But Bryson Hixenbaugh doing a pretty decent job up front, kind of maintaining a gap with Jonathan Delaney as Delaney kind of caught the grass there coming up the top of the hill. But right now it seems like a pretty even fight up front. If Hixenbaugh's been the last 2 laps, he's been about a tenth quicker than Delaney. But again, it's all about what you could do at the end of the stage and what you could do over the course of the race.
Holy cow, you can see that curb whack from Adam Benefield on the dive, potentially. He looked at it on the 03 of Austin Evie, maybe trying to spook him into some sort of mistake. That curb whack from the 83 as he headed his way through turn at number 5. I think those right side tires were probably about 2.5 to 3 feet up in the air. Any higher than that, I thought he was about to grip roll it, which I've never seen here in the Xfinity cars. But hey,
contact!
Stuff. Contact being made, a bump and run. It's getting physical at the front. Delaney putting the bumper to the back of Bryson Hixenbaugh as they head their way through the turn number 11 hairpin. It's Hixenbaugh who leads that lap, but Delaney just as close now as he really ever has been. About 0.2 of a second between these two. Down to turn number 2, very close yet again at these two drivers. If this battle ends in tears, look at the number 73 of Joseph McWhorter. He would be there to pick up the pieces if these drivers run into some difficulties. Have to think about that random chance yellow yet again, which would certainly affect how things are going in this race. But for now, though, my attention is solely on that Hixenbaugh-Delaney battle, which, hey, if turn 11 last time by was anything to go off of, I think it may start to get a bit more physical as the laps go on.
The car I'm thinking about right now is Adam Benefield right now. If he doesn't, if he puts the phone down and he actually makes his pit stop on time, I mean, he's in this battle too. So, I mean, he'd be one, even if he was sitting in third, he'd be licking his chops right now. He'd just wait for these two guys to wreck each other so he can take the lead. But right now, I mean, that's kind of what the hope is of the 73 machine of Joseph McWhorter and Hunter Truex even. I mean, it's free real estate up here. I mentioned at the top of the race, there's really 2 approaches to this. Well, really 3. One, you want to try to win the race. Second one, you want to keep it between the lines, not hit anything, and just bring home as good a finish you can. Then there's those drivers that are just running all the laps just to get home in one piece. And, these two, I think it's really virtual infield care center or the checkered flag right now, the way that they're racing. And I think there's only a small handful of drivers that will race like that, but they believe they can get a win tonight. That's completely understandable as they got loose there. Wow.
Oh, I think that may have been a little bit, yeah, you could see a big one. That was a pile-up. Austin Evie tried to get turned around, and I don't think it was a good rejoin at all as 3 more drivers piling into that. I was just going to say, not sure whether or not there was some extracurricular activity that sent the 03 of Austin Evie into a spin. Let's take a look at this drama as they head their way down into turn 11. There's Eamon with the dive into the turn, contact being made. Yeah, he got hit already, and I think there may have been another tap. No, okay. Oh man, that was an ugly moment for the 17 and the 03. And who's that got called out? Nowhere to go. That black car arriving on the scene of that accident. I think that may have potentially been the 81 of Brandon Hastings, potentially. Not 100% sure on that. It was the 81 of Hastings, yeah. Feel bad for him. Had nothing to do with that incident, but as soon as he saw three cars just blocking the track entirely out of turn 11. He had to drop the anchors and get that car stopped up real quick.
Well, the other one that was involved in that was just an innocent bystander was Matthew Boston Wheeler. I mean, he was collected in that. I don't think him or the Brandon Hastings machine had too much damage. Matthew's got a lot of right front damage, but I think Hastings is okay. But I mean, I'll call a spade a spade. That just wasn't too smart right there. I don't know what Kyle Ammon was thinking there. At first, I gave the benefit of the doubt that he might have overdrove that corner there going into the hairpin, but like he just straight cleaned out Austin Evie twice, and then he collected others into it. I mean, I don't understand what the thought process with that, along with Austin Evie trying to chop him while he's already there. So that's two drivers and I'll use it's not a Ronism, but it's something similar. It's two homeless people fighting over a ham sandwich. I mean, it's wrecking for last basically at that moment.
See, there was one that popped into my head, but I feel like it'd be slightly rude. I was going to say it's like two clowns in a knife fight, but at the same time, I don't really think either of them were necessarily 100% the wrong. I think it was basically murder and accessory as they headed their way through turn number 11. Together they killed, but individually they did not. It was both of them contributing to that incident happening side by side at the front. Hicksonball, Delaney, that had to have been a wall tap as he heads his way through turn number 1. That outside concrete barrier is beckoning, and I think unfortunately for the 6, a wall tap through there. He's now lost down some momentum to the 63, about 0.4 of a second now between those racers. McWhorter's still there to pounce, but I think that gap has increased a little bit between these front two and your final driver in the podium spots. Still running through the course here of stage number 2 as we take a look at another moment involving Kyle Ammon in the 17 car. He has had a truly torrid night, and you can see based off the fact that that car is rumpled up about as badly as a brand new used chip bag that got ran over by a truck and a spin heading his way out of 6.
That's the other thing. He was involved in that wreck a couple laps ago. He spun out and his tires are still hot. So the way these work in iRacing, they're a little different than a lot of racing tires you'll deal with. These tires, when they get a lot of heat in them, they lose grip. And Raymond Root has moved up into P4 now currently, by the way. But the tire situation, as they get hotter, they lose grip. And it's the same thing at 1.5 miles. You'll go on the gas and then the rear end wants to step out. Well, the same thing will happen here, whether you're going in a left-handed or a right-handed turn, that you'll just lose grip because the tires are so hot. It's not like in real life where they just wear and then you actually might even get a little extra grip because of that. But the way that they wear on the surface here is the more heat is not necessarily better.
Yeah, now I'm going to draw a little bit of experience from some of the other cars I've gotten the opportunity to cover here on the iRacing platform. Take a car like the Radical SR10, for instance. I'm not just saying that because I had to do a broadcast with those cars a little bit earlier on this evening, in fact. But those cars, if you overheat the tires or even look at them the wrong way, if the tires don't like the cut of your jib, chances are you're probably going to end up in the wall crying yourself to sleep. As look at that move from Delaney heading his way off through the S's. That was a slick move as he headed his way through turn number 8. Hicksonball with a mighty curb whack through the turn. He's got to lose out a bit of ground, but Delaney, not sure exactly what led to that. We're going to take a look at a replay to see this racing action. You can see they're running line of stern as per usual down through the braking zone to turn number 6. They both locked up pretty badly, but it was worse for the 63. The 6 gets alongside, they touch, they bang doors, they bang wheels, and the 6 banging over the curbs to be able to pull enough of a gap to get into the race lead. Brilliant stuff from Delaney.
Yeah, that's one thing you can do. It's a lot easier to be the chaser on a road course, to put some pressure on somebody. That's the easiest way you could put someone into a vulnerable position as they're approaching some lap traffic here up front. You want that big dot in his mirror to get bigger and bigger, and you want him to be looking out the mirror more than he looks out the windshield. But it's just a simple case as that. He missed a braking zone, and just right there, as they're going to be side by side, Delaney had to get on the brakes pretty hard. He got loose through that last part of the short chute. And like I said, these drivers are in each other's head. I mean, not necessarily through mental tactics, but just they're really close. Once you take the lead, it's almost like you'd rather be the guy chasing than the guy in the lead right now because you don't have to worry about what's going on behind you.
Yeah, no, I think at this point in the race, you can really start to see the mental side of things appear for these racers. As look at that, that's a 73 of McWhorter. Looking at the inside of the 63 of Hicksonball, I think the strategy that we saw from Hicksonball, it worked out well to get track position, but as soon as that pace starts to fall off a bit, that's when we see that driver really begin to struggle. He's down P2, and I think he's going to fall back even more unless he puts a Band-Aid on to stop the bleeding. Adam Benefield, though, he has been quietly and sneakishly pulling his way through the field. Currently slotted in P9 at the present moment, and right behind the 02 of Mark Patch. You can see those two nearly touching bumpers as they head their way through turn number 2. And look at the 10 car involved in this battle as well. But Adam Benefield, been on a comeback tour. That number 83 driver, he is a fiery driver to be sure. He can get those wins, grab 2 in a row a little bit earlier on this season, but he's one that wants to go out and get those victories. He really wants to do that, and I think he has the car that can maybe contend. He just needs to get himself back up into a contending spot.
No, you're exactly right. He's just trying to get back up where he was. Oh, wow! Big moment right there by the Austin Evie machine. Holy cow.
Oh, no.
That
right there was inevitable. A block from Austin Evie as he headed his way down into turn number 5. It wasn't even a mistake from him. It was contact being made. He got sent off the track by Matthew Boston Wheeler in the 06 as the 81 came along. That was Brandon Hastings. Nothing the 81 could have done there. That was pure red mist from a driver. Got punted into spin through turn 11 not terribly long ago and got punted off the road into turn number 4. Despite the fact he was the victim of 2 crimes beforehand, I can't necessarily say he's the innocent party in what spun him around for a 3rd time in the span of the past 3 laps.
I mean, Matthew Boston Wheeler, I get it. He's frustrated. He was an innocent bystander in a wreck that he had nothing to do with, and his car was all tore up, and he sent a little message there. I mean, boys have at it. I personally am okay with that. I mean, you ruined my race, I'm going to ruin your race a little bit. Adam Benefield. He said over the radio, "Was like, my goodness, you're like Ryan Newman right here." Ryan Newman being very famous for being incredibly hard to pass. A lot of drivers said that his car was about 2 car widths wider than a lot of other drivers' cars, just how he drove. So as they go through here, same top 3. Jonathan Delaney's up here at first. Bryson Hicksonball and Joseph McWhorter relatively been tame up here right now. Jonathan Delaney's starting to stretch out that lead a little bit. Kind of the same group of guys all up front here. Eric Wineland's made up a couple spots. He's up to P7. Our buddy Kirk Mills in the Watermobile is up to P6. Hunter Truel rounding out the top 5 right now. But currently here, it's been really tame at the front, but it's been like a dogfight once you get past about 11th or 12th place, Ron.
Yeah, you reach that point, and like up at the front, it's fine. Then you get a little bit farther in the back, and I could probably best compare it to it being the scene by the front door of a Walmart on Black Friday with a half-price deal on flat-screen TVs. It is insanity that we've got at the present moment. Hunter Truel, not immune from the madness that's breaking out here in Stage 2, as you can see him running wide down into the corner. And look at the water car. That's the number 69 of Kirk Mills having that moment down into that section. Tough break for him. These drivers, you can see the mistakes starting to pile up. I mentioned it a little bit earlier on how we get to this point of the race where these drivers realize, okay, Stage 1 completed. What do you mean I have so many laps left to go? It can be a little bit demoralizing for some of these racers, and that's when you start to see those mistakes begin to pile up. I think we're really seeing that get put on full display here in Stage 2. These drivers need to realize that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, whether that be the true end of the tunnel for some racers or whether it be a train coming in the opposite direction for others remains to be determined. but these drivers need to stay focused on that light, because if you stay focused on how long you have left to go, it's like a school project, you know? If you stay focused on how many words you have to type in that 1,000-word essay, it's going to feel like much harder of a task than it really is.
Oh yeah, it's all about what can you do to get yourself to the end, because we've seen it a bunch right here. Bryson Hicks and Jonathan Delaney, they about didn't make it to the end of the race. They were beating and banging earlier, and they finally just cut each other some slack, and now Delaney's stretched the lead out to about 2.5 seconds now. But it was getting hairy everywhere. I mean, all these guys that are beating and banging in the back, I mean, you know, with all the damage there, they're going to be worse off than they'd have been if they just left it alone and just let each other pass.
Yeah, you know, for some of these racers, it's important to remember the fact that you need to just let things go. And it's kind of funny that I raised that as we jump to this camera shot following the 17 and the 03. These two drivers have had the stage 2 from hell. The both of them have not had a good go of things ever since we got this stage started back on lap 21. They're now running in P16 and P17. The damage on these race cars, they are far from factory fresh. In fact, I have seen cars that looked just as much like hoopty rods as those cars driving around in the streets of Philadelphia with people trying to sell them for about $15,000. They're not running strong. They're not running straight at all. They're really struggling at the present moment, just trying to get to the end of this stage with some bumpers that are just about ready to give out if they have a small little flake of dust land on them. We follow Adam Benefield, though, and despite the fact he's been on the charge, that race car is looking rather smooth. That wasn't a smooth run for turn number 8, though, at all for the 87, another sideways snap.
I mean, I know we want to focus here, but I'm focused on this 13 or the 17 and this 03. Kyle Ammon's reeling in the 03, and they're not the best of friends right now, as there's contact there through the hairpin right now between the Benefield machine and our buddy in the 69 car. But I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sorry, that's Eric Wineland, my apology, but it's a lot of very similar looking cars at the field tonight. But I mean, there's ingredients for a bunch of wrecks around this racetrack right now.
Yeah, that it absolutely is. You know, you think of how these drivers are feeling mentally, and you really start to see it put on full display throughout this stage. These drivers using each other's bumpers up quite loud. We are getting to the end of the stage, though, on lap 40, so next time by, Jonathan Delaney will be able to grab it, as here comes the other, actually, my apologies, it's lap 45, until we get to the end of this stage. So these drivers have a bit more time to try and power through, try and make some more spots up like Adam Benefield just did on the 87 there of Eric Wineland, or for some more racers, it's a matter of stay there at the end and just hope that a stage 2 at Sonoma never happens ever again.
It's a lot of evers right there.
Every ever.
Again, well, the Evie and Ammon battle is kind of stretched out a little bit, but I'm not fully done watching that because I'm sure we'll have two cars retire from the races. And Noah Woods, he's oh wow, oh, he hit the end of pit wall. Oh, that's not good. Oh wow, that's again, we talked about it. That's focus right there. That's losing focus. I mean, that wall didn't just come out of nowhere. It's not like a deer hopping across the track or a wallaby popping across the track at Mount Panorama. Oh my goodness.
Did he get lost? Did he think that opening in the wall was the way to continue down? But surely not.
Ron, I gotta tell you, I'm real lost on that. I have no clue there.
Neither do I. Honestly, I'm not sure whether there's something in the air. I mean, it's very hot, but unless these drivers drank about 5 full glasses of buttermilk and about 15 cases of 5-hour energy, I really don't think these racers would be hallucinating that much under the high temperature. I don't know what is in the air here at Sonoma, but whatever it is, making these drivers forget about the pit lane, forget about what it's like to head through turn number 11. We're seeing some bizarre stuff go on here in stage 2. You know, we didn't see a lot of parity during stage 1. I think stage 2 has certainly made up for it. We have seen drivers strike walls in pit lane because I'm not sure if they got lost, or it was like seeing a driver miss their exits on the highway, and instead of just coming to a stop in the runoff area, they just hit the wall and abutment.
I went back and looked at it. I think I can kind of give them some slack here. So you're supposed to be in the rightmost lane when you come down pit road. Well, the right lane ends, and it actually goes back onto the track. So pit road, from the start of pit road to the section where a good chunk of the pit stalls are, actually shrinks by a couple lanes. So, I mean, that's just, he wasn't paying attention, and a mix of, it could get a little, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It could get a little confusing there. So if you look, you see that yellow line there, they're supposed to be to the right of that yellow line in the furthermost right lane. But if you notice, it goes right into the edge of pit wall. So pit road does slim up there toward the second half of pit road.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this from the aerial view. Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, it's definitely understandable. My thing is, like, these drivers, they are, well, at least they're told by the series admins to practice a whole lot for some of these races. So to have a moment like that happen, it's an easy mistake to make potentially. It's just a night to forget if you're Noah Woods.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel bad that we show a replay of that, because that will be something that probably haunts him for many, many moons to come.
Well, we did that just to show, like, hey, here's what I think happened. I think that's exactly what happened. I mean, we had a driver who was leading the race miss pitting that's currently fighting for 7th or 8th place because he was looking at his phone under caution. So, I mean, again, that's a big thing, is focus in this race.
Yeah, focus. Otherwise, your various parts of your car will go hocus pocus when you hit a wall. That was absolutely foul. So if anyone would like my job here at Maconi Entertainment, why not write to us at, alrighty, here's a 10, currently slotted in P10. It's Edward Scherer Jr. He has had a rather intriguing race up to this point. We saw him at the epicenter of a little bit of drama during stage 1, but this second stage has been tamed for him. Running strong at the moment, and maybe trying to reel in the likes of Mark Paget directly in front of him, and Eric Wineland maybe a little bit farther up the road, but to potentially make his way up into P8. We still have a couple laps left to go here in stage 2, as we've got pit stops, and unlike last time where it was Bryson Hicksonball making that early call to pits, Delaney going to do that strategy that Hicksonball did. Delaney making that call to pits.
Yeah, that's not a bad strategy. I think he saw that, he could have saved about 3 or 4 laps of time by just pitting early, and he was like, that's not a half bad idea. But I believe I see a little bit of front end damage on that car. No, it's just how the light was hitting his paint scheme. I was a little worried there, but yeah, this is a good call, I think, by Jonathan Delaney. He's going to restart the final stage. Not probably the final restart of the race, though, with the random potential caution that we could have. But he's going to be in a good spot here toward the end.
Yeah, I think he'll be doing pretty all right. We'll have to see how this final stage rolls. Haven't had the random chance yellow during the first half of this, but have the possibility that we may end up seeing a little bit farther down the line. I can't rule that out at all. It's a side-by-side fight with Adam Benefield and Kirk Mills. Kirk running very, very well in this race. Currently slotted in P4 in the number 69 car. Hey, if he ends up getting a podium or maybe even a win at the end of this race, who knows? Let's see what that water car will be able to do. Hey, water's usually underrated as a beverage, and I think we've underrated Kirk Mills here in this race. Haven't talked about him too much, but he's running strong in P4 at the present moment, feeling a lot of pressure from Benefield, though, so may end up losing out on one spot, but this will still be a mighty result if we can hang on to it and maybe even convert this into a true finish at the end of this race, a little bit farther down the line. Hicksonball's on the white flag lap for this stage. It looks like that'll be the stage win for him, with a nearly 4-second gap between himself and McWhorter, as you can nearly see Benefield putting the front bumper to the back bumper of the 69.
Yeah, as we're approaching the final lap here in stage number 2, people are getting antsy now. They've been racing for over an hour now. A track that I keep mentioning the word, you got to have a lot of focus to get through. I mean, you got to have a lot of focus and a lot of patience, and patience starting to run thin with a bunch of drivers here throughout the field, not just even in the middle of the pack, but even up front. Like, Jonathan Delaney was moving people around. As Field's close to passing here, I think for the end of the stage, we're less than a half lap away.
And a nice move from Benefield down into turn number 6 to get that move done on Kirk Mills. That's P4 for him at the end of the stage. May not seem like much, but in a series like this that is uber competitive, a small little points gain like that may make a huge difference later on this year in the playoffs. Hicksonball, though, going to win stage 2 here at Sonoma. McWhorter going to be classed right behind in P2. Raymond Root is going to be finishing P3. That number 91 car, he's been a sleeper pick all throughout this race. And hey, if the drama picks up in stage 2 as a flagman coughs into his hand, we may end up having to talk about the number 91 being able to do well at the end of this race. He's classed in 3rd from Adam Benefield in 4th. Kirk Mills rounds out your top 5 with Hunter Truex in 6th, Eric Wineland in 7th, Mark Paget in P8, Edward Scherer Jr. in 9th, with Jonathan Delaney in that late call to pit rounding out the top 10 as the stage comes to a close. That's the first 2 stages taken care of, and that is now the bit of history that we have from this race. And speaking of the history we've had from this race and from this season as well, I mentioned the playoffs a couple of moments ago. Let's take a quick little gander at how the point standings shake out heading into this race. You know, I've talked about ad nauseum throughout the season, throughout this race as well, that Bryson Hicksonball and Adam Benefield have been the only 2 drivers to win up to this point in the championship. Hicksonball at 6, Benefield at 2. Joseph McWhorter was able to break through and grab his first win of the season at Pocono some weeks ago. He was the top of the drivers, already pointed their way into the playoffs. Hoytsma, Austin Evie, so no harm, no foul done to the driver of the number 03 cars. He's still locked into the playoffs. Daniel Wallen and Charles Velasquez Jr. locked in as well. Hunter Truex, the highest of the drivers, currently pointed their way into the playoffs at plus 164. Jim Shoefield running all right in 9th. Kirk Mills in 10th, up 62. If he can keep that same performance that he's shown in this stage and run it into the end, if he can get a top 5, that would be a huge points day for the driver who entered this race classed in 9th. Eric Wineland in 10th. Mark Paget rounds out the drivers currently locked into the playoffs, plus 21 above the cut line, with Tim Phillips, the first driver, out at the present moment. So that's how it looks currently. Kyle Wayman certainly not going to do himself any favors, currently slotted P16. That's how it looks at the present moment when it comes to the playoffs. But now, Dylan, we think about both the playoffs and the possibility of having another winner this season. It may end up being a first-time winner. It may end up being another multi-time winner. Let's just wait and see. Only time will tell. Insert phrase here. We still got a final stage left to go. We got random pit stops that are probably going to kick off here in a few moments' time.
The one thing I want to bring up about the points there, you look at 2 guys that are fighting around the cut line. You have Noah Woods and Kyle Ammon. They've had a lot of mistakes over the course of this race. Kyle Ammon, arguing for real estate with other drivers, but also Noah Woods hitting the part that juts out on pit road. I mean, it may not seem like a big deal tonight, but those points add up. I mean, every position's precious. Any point that you can get is precious. So, I mean, they turned what would have been probably an okay night into just a nightmare. And, I don't think you're going to have 7 new winners, just have the entire playoff field be winners. So I think you're going to have a bunch of drivers point in, but they'll look back if it ends up being close. Like, man, I wish that I had done a little bit more, and they're going to look back to this race at that. Looks like Jonathan Delaney has stayed out. Yeah, he stopped early. He did the undercut, so he's going to have probably 1 or 2 lap older tires than everyone else, really. But it hasn't made a difference. Wow, what a fight off of pit road.
Yeah, Joseph McWhorter, not sure whether or not he fed his mechanics 2 cases of Red Bull, but able to get the jump nearly on the 63 of Bryson Hicksonball. As we just said, Jonathan Delaney staying out as a result of that call to pit right towards the end of stage number 2. I was noting that we saw that number 68 car of Noah Woods billowing smoke, and then I realized shortly thereafter that my mic was still muted, so I apologize for the jump scare I probably gave you there, Dylan and Howie in the production truck. 32 laps left to go. All the drivers have made that call to come down pit lane. Not sure if that will be the last, though. We have that chance of a yellow coming out. It's been broken up into sections of this race. In the first 45 laps, have a certain chance, and then from lap 45 to lap 75. So throughout the end of this race, until we get to 4 to go, we have another random chance of a yellow coming out. I won't break out the full percentages. We have that information. However, it's just it's simple math. It's basically at the will of the racing gods to decide to throw a yellow whenever they will. But if we do have a late stage random chance yellow towards the end of this race, that would really shake things up. I wonder if anybody is trying to angle their strategy at the end of this race towards having a random chance yellow.
Yeah, it's setting up for a lot of strategy here. You know, Delaney was the only one that did the undercut there, but it's going to be a fun last 30 laps or so in this race. You know, and you mentioned we haven't had our potential surprise caution right now that the racing gods will deliver upon us at possibly some point in these 30 laps, or they might not. So that's a big thing that's probably in the back of Jonathan Delaney's mind. I'd imagine if that caution comes out, I think everyone's going to pit. They were given 4 sets of tires at the start of the race, 3 in the pits and then 1 that's on the car. So I think a lot of the guys have used both their sets, but you know, you could also have the potential for that caution coming out and anyone that's saved a set of tires that might be in good shape.
And as we see these drivers get packed up for this restart coming up here, will be 30 laps left to go here for race number 19 of the 2025 Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series season here on Maconi Entertainment. And if you want to tune into all of the action, how about to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action. Quick one more joke before we get this race up and rolling. Saw that car of no wood stop there in pit lane. Still the major damage as a result of that pit lane kerfuffle during stage number 2. There's only one thing that popped into my head with the smoke billowing around that car. It's not Habemus popping because we already have a Pope, the brand new Pope elected back in May. It's Habemus radiator after that frontal impact into the end of that concrete barrier a little bit earlier on in this race. We will have a radiator on that car for next week's race at Dover. For now, though, that car is still billowing smoke and probably giving some of these drivers a nice whiff of what happens when things go badly here at Sonoma. But that pace car has made the turn to come down pit lane, waiting for this restart to come out with the usual heavy hitters, the 6 of Jonathan Delaney and the 63 of Bryson Hixenball back up at the front, waiting for that to come out, which it has now, and we're racing for the final stage here at Sonoma. A good restart from Delaney, and not a great one from the 63 of Hixenball. He's now side by side with himself and McWhorter in the 73 car. They are 2x2, 3x2. All these drivers racing hard, and nearly 3 wide, a little bit farther in the back of shot. Delaney got to look to try and run away and shake these drivers off like a bad case of the fleas as they are 2x2 all through turn number 4.
Again, another really tame restart there. You know, I think since they have the ability to go as soon as the pace car's off and they're facing the flag stand right now, that is able to create a lot of separation here. But, you know, the other thing, I know that he did the undercut, Jonathan Delaney. He got fresh tires for everyone else. He's going to end up with the track position. Hixenball got a lot of air through the S's right there. The big thing there is he does have fresh tires, but he does not have the freshest tires. So if you're Bryson Hixenball, Joseph McWhorter, all these guys, they do have a slight tire advantage over the 6 of Jonathan Delaney.
Yeah, and that tire advantage can help you out at the end of this race. You know, we saw that play out with Hixenball during stage 2. He started to drop down a little bit as that tire advantage really became prevalent for the racers behind. And let's see if we have a case of deja vu. I think Delaney has that quick race car where he can maybe just try and pull away regardless of that tire advantage as competitors may have, as side by side between the 83 of Adam Benefield and the 10 there, that Scherer Jr., he's now got a lot of pressure from the back of the 02 of Mark Padgett right behind him, and right behind Padgett get Jim Shoefield involved in that battle as well. You know, despite that number 47 car driving like the wheels were bolted on sideways during stage 2, he kept it on the road, he kept it strong, and he's still running just barely outside the top 10. That 47 car of Jim Shoefield, he's like a cockroach. You can't kill him.
Man, I'm liking all these euphemisms that you have right here. That's a good way to put it. Cockroaches can survive anything, by the way.
See, the reason why I come up with a lot of these interesting euphemisms and metaphors, one viewer on a show that I do, once called me a metaphor maestro as we saw that number 71 car sideways, slideways through turn number 10. There's the move from Benefield for him to jump his way up another spot. That right there is a simply gained P7, as the 71 of Truel was mega sideways through the turn immediately before it. I've been called a metaphor maestro in the past, and part of the reason why that is the case is down to the fact of two very simple words that I managed to learn myself by running full speed into many tables as a young, very, very young boy. Brain damage. Jonathan Delaney is still running strong. That was a moment potentially coming out of turn number 4. Was that Kirk Mills in the water car running off the track? He's going to be like a water and fall down the field if these drivers have anything to say about it. A move there from the 87 and a move as well from the 83. Mills with a simple mistake going to drop him down from P5 to P7 as there's the yellow. 28 laps to go and the caution's out.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So now we have a big decision here. So if I am understanding correctly, this is probably the only random yellow that they could get in the stage. If there's a second one, it's a very low chance. But do you come to... I believe this is the last one of the race that they'll have. But do you take your last set of tires here? This just threw a wrench into this race. So, I mean, if you're Jonathan Delaney, you got a big decision here. If you come down and pit, I think everyone else might stay out, or a good chunk of them will stay out. And if you're not Jonathan Delaney, if you're a Bryson Hicksonbaugh, if you're even an Adam Beneful who's rebounded back to 6th place, or you're one of these other guys up here in the top 10, do you take 10 tires? Do you take tires here and then have a significant tire advantage to try to maybe steal a win here?
Yeah, I think that tire game is certainly one that a lot of these drivers are thinking about at the moment. We saw that number 17 car, though, of Kyle Amon. A miserable end to a rather miserable evening for him, the damage on that race car. I think I have seen shopping carts that drive straighter than that. IKEA shopping carts, nonetheless, which I'm pretty sure you could push sideways because of the swivel wheels they've got on, at least here in the States. But, oh boy, that was a very screwed up looking race car at the end of a very poor and disappointing evening for the number 17 car. But when we think about that tire strategy, if it were me, I would go for it. I would put some tires on your race car because, I mean, frankly, with how things have gone for everybody at this point of the race, even with the drama we've had and that 4-car stack up we saw coming out of the seconds last corner, the hairpin at turn number 10, haven't really seen a big crash yet. It being a road course, we're not going to see a yellow come out because of a spin. I mean, hey, in NASCAR, a driver going to have a brake failure and the yellow still won't come out. As the driver's faking that call to pit, one will come in, though. That's the 87 of Eric Wineland making that call to pit. That looked rather sketchy for all of those racers. I wonder now, this may be a shot in the dark, but for Delaney, Hicksonbaugh, and McWhorter, all of which who followed each other in that late dupe to stay out on the racetrack, I wonder if they picked up any sort of black flags for that, because it did cross the line. So that is a penalty. They all really did not do themselves any favors. I'm not sure if it will be. Hearing no black flags at the present moment, I'm not sure if they will pick up any. But you can see all of them staying true to themselves, really. Eric Wineland, I think the only car that decided not to come down pit lane, which I personally think is a bit of a missed opportunity for some of these racers.
I mean, I guess we'll see. The one big thing there, I mean, that's just the division line. The commitment line is at the edge of the barriers there, coming on to where pit road starts. And I mean, you don't even need to be down at pit road speed there. You need to be all the way around when the first green cone is. So I think everyone was good there. No penalties handed out for that, even though they did run over the cone. So I can't remember, like in real NASCAR, I don't know if that would be a penalty or not, but they did not cross the commitment line, so I think all of our leaders are safe and sound at the moment. But that's a real bold call by Eric, and I think his crew chief, my buddy Dustin Hall, we have a little Coke Series history right there between me and him. We mainly him, and Kyle Putz helped him. Our buddy Brady Cattell won a Coke race at Talladega, I believe, 5 years ago. So that made me feel old, but yeah, I know old Eric, and I know Dustin Hall, his crew chief right now, and I know the gears are turning up there, and he's he's a pretty good guy to have up on the box there if you're the 83 machine, or 87 machine, I'm sorry.
And I still think it was a good call to make that call to come down pit lane. It may not seem like a huge difference compared to some of these racers that have probably, I would say, at the oldest, 8-lap older tires than that call from Eric Wineland to make that call to come down pit lane. But that can make a huge difference. You know, we may see at the end of the other 26 laps we have left to go here, that difference being rather massive. But the yin comes with the yang. You know, these drivers deciding to value track position over fresh rubber, and based off the drama we saw in stage 2, I can't necessarily say that's a bad call. You can have a quick race car, feel good about your chances, then put some brand new tires on that car, and then next thing you know, you're going to get caught up in a nuclear bomb blast that goes on in the midfield. And the next thing you know, you may have had a good tire advantage, but with one wheel about as far sideways as a capsizing canoe, you won't really be able to mount a charge up to the front after that.
Yeah, this will be a real big test right here. You look throughout the field. I also looked Eric Wineland when he came down pit road. He had to get some damage fixed as well. He had a little right rear crinklage right there on the drafty car Toyota. But I think he just went ahead. He was like, well, the worst that could happen is I just get set back here. I get more damage. But he will have a significant tire advantage. Him and Tim Phillips, it looks like, were the only two that, and Brandon Hastings also, I apologize. Those three came down pit road, and they all just took tires, and Eric had some damage fixed. But so far, those are the only three that came down and took a gamble.
And we will be getting this race restarted here this time by as well with the usual suspects, the 6 of Delaney and the 63 of Hixenball running up at the front. McWhorter, he has been, I would say, consistently third throughout this race. I haven't really seen too much from him that would push him into stronger contention. He's just been running solidly in third all throughout this race. I'm not really sure what else to say other than that. He's just been running in third all throughout it. But who knows? Those two drivers in front of him of Delaney and Hixenball have really been playing with fire, and I don't think they're going to be walking on eggshells anytime soon. So let's see how this restart goes. Probably going to be the final one of the night here for race number 19 of the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series at Sonoma. We're back to racing. Delaney getting off to a flyer. McWhorter getting off to a flyer. Hixenball getting off to anything but. He's crashed and burned down into P3. They had their way up the hill into turn number 2. Now, look at the 83 car of Adam Benefiel. As much as he's had to battle back from adversity, that car is quick. So let's see the Team Conti driver maybe try and mount a charge.
To keep an eye on the drivers back here that took tires. But Eric Wineland, looks like he's on rails here at the start. He's made quick work of Brandon Hastings, but again, he's kind of in the, they always say that if you're in a tornado, if it goes around you, the safest place to be is in the eye of the storm. Well, he's currently in the eye of the storm. A lot of drivers that are just not real happy with each other all night right now. But as we have a couple cars off track up here, and the S is one of the barrier, as that were 3 or 4 cars going through. That was Jim Schofield and Edward Shear, and somebody else just turned around over here. I think it's Mark Padgett. Wow, that's big.
Yeah, so Mark Padgett getting that car back up and rolling. We follow him still in the O2. I think the other car involved in that may have potentially been the 10 of Edward Scherer Jr. Yes, I believe it was. Let's take a look at this. Down to 6. The contact being made as Padgett goes for the dive. The 10, though, on that inside line. Oh, you could see. Oh, man, that... I think the 10 definitely could have helped out that case a little bit more. I think that was very much so preventable from that 10 car. You don't want to concede a spot, and you don't want to completely ruin your run heading off through a very, very damaging series of corners if you do have a trip up. But at the same time, if he backed out of that and maybe drove up on the curb a little bit more to prevent that contact, it would have ended up a heck of a lot better than that did. Let's take a look at this involving the 03 and the 06. That's Matthew Boston Wheeler and Austin Evie down into the turn, and contact being made. The 81 nearly gets killed in it all. The 06 Matthew Boston Wheeler stopped on the turn and gets it back rolling, missing a hood. So thankfully for him, overheating won't be a problem towards the end of this race. However, his tires have been turned down to rectangles as a result of that half spin.
Man, I just look at Matthew Wheeler and Austin Evie. I'm like, God, they've hit everything but the lottery tonight. They've been they've kind of been around each other all night. Those are two that I think their patience is out. So I think both of their cars are pretty close to done. And wow, we got a big wreck here. The tires.
Oh, it's Bryson Hixenball. The damage on that car.
Holy cow.
That's big. That is big damage on that car. That has to be a meatball. He is done for in this race. Hixenball missing a front bumper, missing a wheel, and oh no, it was the inside tire bundles I said earlier on in the show. They're made out of a matter of white dwarf stars. They weigh 1,000,000 tons, and Hixenball with a very, very uncharacteristic mistake. That's the 6-time race winner from this season.
Yeah, he's done. That right front is not attached to that car.
Ruin his race.
I hate to interrupt there. That right front of Bryson Hixenball is not attached to the car anymore. That's not good for him, and he is out of the event. Now Jonathan Delaney's just kind of all by himself. I mean, that's the other thing about that focus. I mean, you know, I've said it a bunch tonight. Those drivers, you know, they're trying to get every fraction of a second, and he just took it a little far there, and now he's out of the race, and it's not a good points night for him. He's going to go from having probably a top 3 finish to looking like he's probably not going to finish even in the top 20 tonight.
Yeah, that is a huge swing there. Thankfully for him, he has enough of a cushion having multiple wins, but there was definitely a lot of weight that was lifted off the shoulders of the six of Jonathan Delaney as a result of that moment. That was huge for Hixenball. I was thinking, how in the world did that happen? And then I remembered the bits of tire barriers. See, in real life, if you center punch one of those in the NASCAR stock car, granted, it will not be a pleasant ride. It'll be like slamming into a deer and also a trash bag full of about 250 pounds of sad, moldy lasagna made in California. But at the same time, that has a bit more give than it does on iRacing. Those tire bundles are basically concrete pillars. It's like those giant balls they have in front of a target, the red concrete ones. I remember I tried kicking one of those as a kid. My foot did not like me after that, and I don't think these race cars like these drivers after they hit the barriers through the second to last turn.
Yeah, you made a good point there. I mean, that's something we kind of forgot to cover at the top of the show, but, you know, you watch, you know, whether it's IMSA or even when IndyCar was here, you know, if you hit those, you know, it's just hitting a bunch of rubber tires. They're going to move. They might cause a little bit of damage, but nothing crazy, just to be able to race. But like you said, it's like they're attached to the ground. They don't move. There's no give in those. So it's if you make contact with those, as we saw with the 63 machine earlier of Bryson Hixenball, that is the end of your event if you hit those tires.
Yeah, it's an easy mistake to make, to be sure. You know, you head through that corner, you can't see all of them. You can't see all of those tire bundles. They come up rather blind through there. The best way, I think I've compared it to this in the past when doing broadcasts here at Sonoma, which, incidentally enough, you know, I think by the end of this weekend, I'll be on broadcast like 217, 218 of this year. So I've been on the air a lot throughout this year on iRacing. This is only the second show that I have done this year at Sonoma, and I think it's the third one I have done ever at Sonoma. It's just a track that does not get used a lot here in the sim. Probably the old scan, part of the reason why that is the case, but every single time I've done a broadcast here and I talk about that final hairpin, turn number 11 here, I best compare it to playing like one of the old dirt rally games and getting a call from your spotter note saying, don't cut for a certain turn. Oh, look at that! Door-to-door contact being made between the 69, that's Kirk Mills, and the 71 of Hunter Truex. Truex jumps his way up to 5th, but that was not 100% smooth.
I just listened. I have the full scanner on for the field. Kirk Mills did a dive bomb sound effect into the radio there. And I think that's sending a message to the said V1 of Hunter Truex. Didn't really appreciate it, but they got through unscathed for the most part, and they're cruising along. But give a call to Kirk Mills, our buddy over here. He's having a great race tonight. He's running P6. He's kind of hung around in the top 10 all night. He's been as high as 4th. He's started 10th, but he's had an excellent race tonight.
Yeah, he has had a very good race. You know, we've seen these drivers have either just cataclysmically bad evenings or very good ones. And I would say all the drivers running inside the top 5. I'd say just about everybody running inside the top 10 with a couple of exceptions of drivers who have had evenings about as checkered as the checkered flag that will fall on these drivers. Hopefully not actually on them. That sounds like something. Didn't Michael Waltrip do that at the All-Star race with the yellow flag a couple of months ago? But hopefully not actually fall on these racers here in the not too far off future. But you look at the likes of Jonathan Delaney. He's now holding on to a nearly 2-second lead between himself and Adam Benefiel, who's had a wild roller coaster ride through the field. That's the call to pit for the 10. Probably some damage on that race car after an incident a little bit earlier on. Pit stop still continuing, and should be reminded again, we talked about this during the last yellow, but to those just tuning into this, little chance of us having another yellow between now and the end of this race. A random chance yellow has been exhausted. We have got this race restarted. It's been a hectic restart to be sure, but unless we have a major pileup heading through turn number 11, which, I wouldn't necessarily completely rule out, but I have a feeling it may not happen. I think we're going to have a clean run all the way through to the checkered flag.
Well, now that you said that, I think you may have jinxed it, but I'm starting to lean in that direction. The field's getting pretty spaced out right now. Jonathan Delaney, now, might jinx it right here. There's some lap traffic up here. The 53 car. Currently, I can't tell who that is. Oh, that's Steve Benjamin. Steve's been... I'll give a call to Steve here. I know he's a couple laps down just on pure pace, but he's been out of the way. You've seen him get past a lot, but he hadn't caused a lot of issues tonight. If any, but give a call to him. If you know that you're off pace, and I'll give this to any iRacing drivers. We have a couple cars coming down pit road. Like I said earlier, it's one thing to be slow. Just don't be in the way. You could be in the way if you have pace, but if you're slow and in the way, that's how you can start to lose safety rating, lose I rating, and not make a whole lot of friends on the service right now.
Yeah, really, I think these road course races are a hotbed for tempers flaring. You think road course racers, not road course races, you think short track races are the ones that do that the most. I tend to disagree about that. I feel like road course races are the ones that can really test the temperament of these racers. Some of them crack under the pressure, others hold up to it beautifully, and I can't necessarily fault either side for having either reaction to these races. It can get physical, because you think of a short track, slow turns, flat, not a lot of banking, and these drivers may have to break their elbows out to get some moves done. Doesn't that describe just about every single turn on every single road course in the NASCAR world? So I feel like the tempers and temperatures really start to flare on the road courses more than the other short tracks, which I think is potentially sacrilegious of me to say.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, like you mentioned. What creates all the issues at Martinsville? Well, heavy braking zones and tight spaces. Well, what do you have here at Sonoma? Heavy braking and tight spaces here, and it's just people fighting over the same real estate. And take a look at the timing screen right now. The fastest car inside the top 5 is not our leader, Jonathan Delaney. It's Adam Benefiel. I want to give a call to him. I had his crew incorrect. His crew chief is Dustin Hall. He is not the crew chief of the 87 of Eric Wineland earlier. Dustin's doing a great job with this 83 machine right now. He's got running second for this Team Conti Sim Performance Racing machine right now, and he's kind of tracking to be about a 10th quicker on this lap too. So this race is far from over, and Adam Benefiel has won earlier. He missed pit road because at the end of the first stage because he was playing on his phone, and right now he's made up for that mistake and a little bit more right now.
Hey, talk about peaking at the right time. Even if you have the midsection of the race that it could best be described as torturous in certain examples, if you can be there right at the end, it doesn't really matter how the midsection of this race went for you if you can grab that checkered flag at the end of this race. So let's see how Benefiel may be able to do it. I will say, commentator jinx for me, that gap has ballooned out yet again, now briefly to north of 2 seconds. It's teeter-tottering between those racers, though, for sure. Jonathan Delaney going to be on slightly older tires than that 83 of Benefiel, and I wonder if that could be the difference that we're starting to see. We're getting to that point now where Delaney is really going to start to feel the burn. I think his tires are about 8 laps older than the ones of Adam Benefiel, if I had to give it a guess. A little bit smaller than that, potentially. I'll have to double check my sources to see exactly what the difference is in terms of these drivers. I'm actually looking through right now. I definitely oversold it with 8. It's half that at 4. But 4 laps is still a very big difference around this track. Sonoma's not a short track, and it's not a track that is super easy for tires either. So frankly, 4 laps, it may not seem like much, but I think Delaney really starting to feel that burn compared to Benefiel. So if Benefiel can play the expert offense game and really start to push that 6, we may end up seeing him get into the lead more often than not.
You know, he had a little bit of a moment there in that final set of corners, but you know, if you're Jonathan Delaney, you know, there's a lot of decisions and non-decisions to make here. If he hadn't undercut here at the end of the stage, at the end of stage 2, or if Adam Benefiel hadn't pitted on that surprise yellow, I mean, who knows? Someone else may have came down. I think Jonathan Delaney was like, I'll take my tires now, and I'll still have the good track position as we get done with the stage at stage 2. And he was completely content with that. But who knows? If he stays out there, who knows if somebody else does that undercut, and then they're in the track position. And, you know, track position is very key here. I mentioned he's gonna trade off track position for a slight tire disadvantage, but he's shown that, you know, it hasn't really mattered. Delaney's had the speed and the pace for it, but I mentioned it a couple laps ago. You know, Benefiel was faster than him. Now he's about half a second slower, even with a tire advantage.
And frankly, we talk about a lot about the tire advantage, but we also have to go back to the point that we have raised a lot throughout this broadcast, talking about the drivers themselves. You think about the comfort level that some of these racers are in presently, and you think about the challenges that these drivers have faced up to this point. I mean, hey, this race started quite some time ago. We're pushing, I believe now we're about an hour and a half into this race. So it's not like these drivers have been running around for a very short period of time. I think we're getting to the point as well where we may slowly but surely get to the point where we time out this race as well. So it has been a long one here at Sonoma for these racers. So it is a test of the driver's skill and their patience and their mental fortitude, as well as the fortitude of their cars. So if you're feeling energized, if you're feeling energetic, and you want to try and push to get a move done like that, you'll be able to do good. So that's going to be pretty all right. And hearing as well, the number that I was looking at, we're not getting to the end of this race. We're not timing it out. But to say that these drivers have been running for a short amount of time here tonight would be an absolute white lie. They've been out there for a while.
I mean, you look at the distance of this race. I mean, it's a 79 lap race, but you're running about a minute 15 to a minute 20 every lap. So you do a couple math here. I mean, it's going to be about close to a 2-hour event. I mean, it's a test of mental fortitude. I mean, you know, a lot of tracks, you know, if you run a 80-lap race at Daytona, it's, you know, hold it wide open, stay in the draft, don't let anything crazy happen. Mile and a half, you're constantly fighting tires and everything. But here it's different. I mean, every lap can be different here. It's I keep beating this into the ground, the F word, not that F word, the focus word. Got to have a lot of focus here. Got to have a lot of focus. And so far, the drivers that are succeeding tonight, like Jonathan Delaney and Adam Benefiel, they've been focused from the get-go. Well, except for one time when Adam Benefiel was checking his phone and missed pit road, but he's bounced back from that. So he's been able to bounce back from that. But the one that's just been, I want to say, the class of the field tonight's been Jonathan Delaney. And again, he's stretched that lead back out. It was once down to a second and a half. Now it's almost to 4 seconds. And, you know, you don't want to necessarily put it in cruise control. You still want to go, you know, pretty hard, but, you know, you don't want to go too hard because you might go off the racetrack, you might hit the wall, or who knows what happens. So I think Jonathan Delaney's at a spot where don't want to really say he's going to have to save, but I think he can afford to take it easy around a few portions of the racetrack.
And, you know, as bad as it is, whenever I'm doing a Formula race to compare something to NASCAR, I feel like it's exactly the same way comparing a NASCAR race to something involving Formula One. But when I think of drivers sending themselves off into the cruise lane and actually doing themselves more harm than good, think about the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix, I believe it was, when Nigel Mansell ended up losing the race on the last lap because he just decided to take it easy, ended up losing that race, I believe, to Nelson Fittipaldi. I nearly said Nelson Fittipaldi. You can tell that I've been up for I had
Same
about
thing.
4 hours of sleep last night. Nelson Piquet, second tries the charm. I blended the two Brazilian F1 legends together. Nelson Fittipaldi. Sounds like the mix of a businessman and a racing driver, but it was Nelson Piquet who ended up winning that race as Nigel Mansell decided to take it a little bit easy, sent himself off into the cruise lane, and that's when he started to struggle, made a mistake, and ended up losing the race. We even saw a couple of weeks ago at the Mexico City race for the Cup Series when Shane Van Gisbergen was told by his crew chief, hey, I may want to take it easy, and he said, no, I don't want to take it easy. I still want to push that car to the limit. There comes a certain point in racing where if you start to take it a little bit easy, that's when those mistakes start to pile up. When you let your mind roam, that'll be when stuff really starts to get tough.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I don't want to call it necessarily a drag, but, you know, it is incredibly hard. I'm not going to classify myself as a good sim racer. I'm an okay sim racer. I do a lot of it. I enjoy it. But when you get into longer races like this, you kind of get tunnel vision, where it's like you're just kind of in the zone and you're not really acknowledging anything else. But if anything crazy happens, then suddenly you're out of focus like that. But it's a drag. This is one of the harder tests on the drivers this year, is this race tonight.
And I think we've certainly been able to see that. Some drivers have been able to cope well. Others have snapped under the pressure. Coming up to final 10 laps of this race here for race number 19 of the 2025 Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series here on Maconi Entertainment. And if you're looking forward to seeing the rest of the action here from this season and the rest of the action here on Maconi Entertainment, well, how about you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action. Jonathan Delaney holds on to a 4.2-second lead between himself and Adam Benefiel. I feel like we're at the point now where unless Jonathan Delaney has some sort of mistake, goes off the track, and loses out on a boatload of time, or if we have a miracle yellow for Adam Benefiel, it's looking good for Delaney at the present moment. A 4.4-second gap in 9 laps. I wouldn't say that's insurmountable, but it is definitely a sizable cushion to have.
Yeah, he's got it in cruise control, or as close as you can to cruise control, and he's done a pretty good job tonight. He's been, you know, you kind of thought there'd be some other competitors. You know, Adam Benefiel was fighting for this lead here not too long ago. Bryson Hixenbaugh before he met the tire bundles along the hairpin. But so far tonight, I mean, it's been the Jonathan Delaney show. I don't think there's been but maybe 4 or 5 laps where he hasn't been the leader tonight. Or, well, say 2 or 3 laps under green at least. But he's been really good, a real tidy, real neat race. Not too many crazy issues. And, you know, even when you get into the Coke Series, you get into the Porsche Cup Series, where these guys are very big professional racers at road courses, they're still going to have a mess up every once in a while. So you don't need a perfect race, but you need as close to perfect as possible to get yourself into a good spot like, you know, Jonathan Delaney has, Adam Benefiel, Joseph McWhorter has. Joseph McWhorter really has had a tidy race tonight. You know, the only guy inside the top 5 that had any issues was Adam Benefiel. He was probably scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through Snapchat and whatever on that first stage and missed pit road and had to go to the back of the field, but he's certainly made up for it tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's any sort of time in iRacing, need to specify in iRacing, because obviously don't text and drive in real life, folks. But I think I remember one time on iRacing I was driving, I think it was an F3 race at Spa, and I ended up looking at my phone just for a few moments. I think this was the same day that it was announced that Lewis Hamilton was going to be racing for Ferrari starting in 2025 over in F1, and I remember being so dumbfounded I ended up crashing my car there. So sometimes, you know, you turn on your phone and you're so befuddled by what you see that really the stuff going on out there in the virtual racetrack doesn't have any sort of bearing. It wasn't the smartest and brightest moment there, must be said, for Adam Benefiel. I hope he doesn't take offense to that. I've been there and done that before. I am not the brightest bulb inside of the toolbox, so trust me, I have absolutely no room to judge. But hey, if he can make his way up to second at the end of all this, even with that moment a little bit earlier on, it'll just be a good story at the end of it.
Well, hey, you know, we mentioned it because he's made up for it. You know, we wouldn't be hammering him for this. I mean, because I really think, you know, if he could happen against another caution and he could throw some tires on it, we get a crazy finish to this, I think he'd have a chance there. But, I mean, you can't ask for much better than second place tonight. You know, you talk about that, but really, outside of that, that's been his only mistake. And like I said, you're not going to have a perfect race when you come to a road course. And I think once you come to that realization, I think that's when drivers get better. Because you saw it last year at Watkins Glen in the Cup Series. You had Shane Van Gisbergen, who's one of the best road racers in the world. He's racing against Chris Buescher, and SVG has a bad entry into the chicane on the backstretch of Watkins Glen, and he loses the race. So it's like, you're not going to have a perfect race. It's just, what are the mistakes? How many are there? And can you recover from them? And Adam's done a good job tonight.
Yeah, just being there in that right spot to pick up the pieces. It's worked out for drivers in real life. It's worked out for them well in the sim. And hey, even if those pieces never get dropped, you still end up with a good result at the end of this race. I don't think any driver would necessarily 100% turn down second place points. It's not as good as a win, but it still helps out. I gotta say, when it comes to the points battle, which is probably going to be the case between Bryson Hixenbaugh and Adam Benefiel going to definitely get a good swing of momentum on his side, leaving this race with a DNF after that rather clumsy moment through turn number 11 for Bryson Hixenbaugh, and Benefiel currently on track for P2 at the end of all this, with 6 laps left to go and a 5-second gap between Delaney and Benefiel. This would be a good race with everything said and done for the 83 of Benefiel, but just hang on to that spot for the final few stages. He'll be running pretty all right. I don't think he'll be necessarily 100% happy about a P2, but I don't think he'll turn it down either. As look at that, a dive from Tanner Marty on Brandon Hastings off into the second last corner. And now Mark Padgett going to get involved in that fight as well.
There's still a lot of positions to be determined around here. I know we've been kind of focused on this lead up here between Delaney and Benefiel, and then there's a big gap back to McWhorter, who's kind of on his own little island as well. But you go back to 4th and 5th right now, the top, or 4th, 5th, and even 6th are within 5 seconds of each other. So you got a lot of good battles around this racetrack.
And this is one that we've got on screen right now, the battle for the final spot inside the top 10. Any point can matter, and some of the racers you've got on screen right now are the ones battling for the final few spots inside the playoffs. And after this, folks, only 7 more races left to go from the regular season here in the 2025 Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series Championship. Marty holding on to that final top 10 spots. It stands presently. Mark Padgett, the 0-2, there to pick up the pieces if there is a moment. Brandon Hastings, he's dropped down like a stone thrown into a pond here currently in this lap, all the way down now in P12, about 1.2 seconds off. With 5 laps now left to go, Jonathan Delaney continues to stretch that gap between himself and Adam Benefiel in P2. Joseph McWhorter is well farther back in P3, 11.5 seconds back of your P2 runner of Adam Benefiel, and that would be over 17 seconds now between himself and Delaney for the race lead. Raymond Boot, I don't think we've talked about him at all in the number 91 car. Currently slotted in 4th. He's about 4 seconds back of McWhorter, so not going to see him get involved in any major Titanic battles unless he has a major mistake, and we'll see him and Hunter Truex start to battle towards the end of this. But Raymond Root, he's been rather impressive thus far here at Sonoma, it must be said.
Yeah, he's had a real solid race. I can't remember him being involved in anything or even going off track, and he qualified 6th, and he's up to 4th, and again, that's what I mentioned earlier. You have a lot of drivers that are going to try to push the issue and try to win the race, and sometimes it'll end up biting him. I'll mention Bryson Hixenbaugh again. He hit that tire barrier going around the hairpin as we're on board with Brian Wertman. But he had a moment here going into the hairpin as right now looking back at the lead. He's going to cut up pit road. As we're going to see coming down through pit road here. Don't really know why he came down pit road.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Oh, wow. So he has a meatball flag. I don't know if he might have had some tires worn down, which that could be a thing. If you get down to 0% on the tire wear, that gives you a meatball. Oh, he's got some engine issues.
Funny shit. And he came in to serve a drive-through penalty. I think he's got bigger issues than that, though, if I'm honest. Oh, boy. It's like the West Los Angeles dope smoking team is practicing inside the car. Let's take a look at a replay involving, actually, no, this is live action with Tanner Morty in the number 29 car. Still running strong. No smoke coming off the back of that car. I think there may have been a moment for him as he's lost down the final spot inside the top 10 to Mark Padgett in the O2. Not sure what Marty did to lose out on that spot, but hey, worked out well for Padgett in the O2, holding on to that final spot inside the top 10 with 3 laps left to go. But that, I'm not sure, that had to have been a money shift there. There had to have been some sort of chicanery. I think if he had hit the wall and given himself engine damage that way, we would have been able to see, because the sheet metal in that car would probably resemble slightly purple-tinted confetti.
Yeah, who knows? I haven't been able to see anything. Right now, I was going to mention before that happened, Jonathan Delaney really only had 2 lap cars to try to hassle around, and he got through them clean. It was the 06 of Matthew Boston Wheeler, who's back up to 14th now. He's gained some spots through a little bit of attrition. He was running bottom half of the teens right here, about 18th or 19th, but he's going to end up having an okay race. But Jonathan Delaney's got nothing but, well, I won't say green grass, but he's got, you know, slightly off-color grass. Can we talk about how beautiful Sonoma is when nothing races there? How it's just beautiful. It looks like the old Windows desktop screen. How beautiful and green it is. I wish more series would race there when it's fully green like that in the springtime. Off topic.
You know, I kind of wish that they would do that as well. Just have a race here in March, not have it in summer where everything is just beige and gray. Every single time we race here, I feel like I'm in the bathroom of a seafood restaurant. Everything is beige, everything has a slight yellow and blue tinge to it, and I'm not necessarily sure I like it. Let's run in California when the grass is green. I'm not talking about the stuff that I mentioned a couple of moments ago. That is legal in the state of California, I believe. No, the grass on the ground, it makes this track a heck of a lot prettier. And hey, we got rain tires nowadays. It is a rainy season in California, which is the reason why the grass isn't dead by then. So let's just run Sonoma well earlier on in the year. And while we're at it, we want to have another race in California. I would love to see a NASCAR Cup race at Laguna Seca. That would be some fun, man. Holy cow. Talk about a interesting spectacle. That would be enjoyable. But Jonathan Delaney, he's got to be enjoying this. He's on the white flag lap. One more lap of racing action left for the driver, the number 6, to complete an absolutely dominant, I wouldn't say a total shutout, but it's as close to a shutout as you can get without being a total shutout.
Yeah, he hadn't pitched a perfect game, but he's pitched a no-hitter. He's done a good job tonight. It's been real clean outside of the laps where guys were trying some strategy, trying to undercut the stage breaks and the cautions. He's, like I said, it hadn't been a perfect game, but it's been a no-hitter, so it's been a real good job. As there's a wreck ahead, the Workman machine and Brandon Hastings going off track, but I think they're going to get that bottled up here.
Oh, as you can see, that engine damage still on that number 35 car of Brian Wortman. I think that may have been part of the reason why this happened. You see the smoke coming off the back of that car. Looks like it's powered by diesel, and it looks like it's powered by milk based off how slow he's going. He pulls over to the side of the track, heading his way through turn number 6, probably waiting for some cars to overtake him. And as he rejoins the track, looks like... yeah, just a slow moment there for the 35, but as that drama has been going on, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, Jonathan Delaney is about to come through to win this race. There's a checkered flag for Jonathan Delaney. He is victorious at Sonoma. You can see that rather damaged 35 car, and a beautiful slide from Jonathan Delaney at the end of a very well-earned victory here in Southern California.
Gonna put on a little show for the fans here, pulling an SVG. He's going to drift around the racetrack.
I know, I think he's earned the right to do this. He played calm with those tires enough throughout this race. He has definitely earned the right to just burn them down to the canvas at the end. And he's got to be happy about that. His first win here in the Xfinity Series. I believe he's a full-time Cup runner, so I'm not sure if that's going to punch a ticket for him into the playoffs. I'll have to get a word on that here in a couple of moments' time. But the 6th Delaney certainly quite pleased about this result. He burns it down the runoff area of turn number 6 in spectacular fashion, it must be said.
And there goes the motor.
And pop goes the engine. It was bound to happen at some point. just bound to happen. Oh boy. Well, he certainly earned the right to kill the motor.
Oh yeah, he's good right now. I think he's just going to leave it parked right there. But yeah, that's a heck of a, like I said, I mentioned earlier, what a perfect game, but it was a no-hitter for Jonathan Delaney. He did a good job tonight.
I'm looking through, actually, trying to get further word about this. I'm not entirely sure. I think that may actually count as a playoff lock win there for the Six and Jonathan Delaney. I'll also look for further word about that. Currently, resorting to the roster information that we have got on our end presently. But if it is a playoff locking win, I gotta say, pretty dominant fashion to both do that and continue on the streak of different winners we've had up to this point on the road courses. Jonathan Delaney, though, gets win number 1. He's victorious at the end of 79 laps here at Sonoma. He finishes 10.5 seconds in front of Adam Benefield in P2. Joseph McWhorter rounds out your podium in 3rd. It'll be Raymond Root classed in P4, Hunter Truel in 5th, Kirk Mills with a mightily impressive P6, Eric Wineland finishes in 7th, and from Austin Evie in 8th, Jim Shoefield in 9th, Mark Padgett will round out your top 10, and looking right behind those racers and continuing on through the rest of the results that we have here. From just a brilliant race here at Sonoma with a lot of challenge and chaos baked into it as well. Tanner Marty is classed in P11, Brandon Hastings in 12th, Matthew Boston Wheeler in P13, Tim Phillips in 14th, Edward Scherer Jr. is classed in P15, 2 laps down. Pretty much the rest of these drivers either finished multiple laps down because of damage in the case of Brian Workman, or didn't even take it to the end of this race. Michael Pratchik is classed in 17th, Rory Collins in P18, Steve Benjamin in 19th, Bryson Hicksonball is classed down in 20th after that heartbreaking mistake right towards the end. Kyle Lehman is classed in 21st, Noah Woods in 22nd, Ken Ron in 23rd, Lucas Hoytsman 24th, Daniel Llewellyn had a very early DNF, and Jason S. Taylor classed 80 laps down from the Virgin Islands because he is in race control and did not even take the start. But that's how it shakes out at the end of this race. And just a rather hectic one, it must be said. Fantastic to watch, but hectic to be sure.
Yeah, there was a little bit of everything all around here. But, I mean, I do want to give a call to Tim Phillips, who was the first car to finish a lap down. He finished with no incident points throughout the race. The most that we had was Matthew Boston Wheeler. He had 11. So it seemed like everyone was pretty clean all throughout the event here this evening. So a real clean and tidy race. Nothing got too crazy. It was one little stretch in the middle of the race. But other than that, it was just a real nice and tidy race.
And a good one for these drivers. They put on a good show throughout it. Some didn't have the best of evenings, it must be said, but, you know, for a vast majority of everybody else, they were going to be keeping their heads high, leaving this race and heading to the next round of the championship at Dover, but more on that in a couple of moments' time. For now, though, I want to get the interview started, and I think the first driver that I want to have a chat with is going to be our P3 finisher at the end of this race, and number 73 of Joseph McWhorter joining us in the commentary booth. Joseph, well done on the podium here at Sonoma. Happy to talk us through the challenges of what looked like a very, very challenging evening for all of you racers up and down the grid. Oh,
we have Joseph. Joseph, you got a copy?
Hello, Joseph.
Or to Joseph. He's in here.
Yep, he is. He is in here. I think give him a couple of moments to get his microphone sorted out, and
he might have had to go to the restroom. That was a long race with no break, so
potentially, yeah. I had to take my own restroom break midway through that broadcast, so I went.
Not me. I was strong. I mean, a lot stronger than you. So.
Hey, well done. That's the downside of me having a whole glass of iced tea right before the other start of the show. So I think we're going to try doing this potentially in reverse order instead, because of number 73 of McWhorter unable to hear us, or at least we are unable to hear him. So I think the first driver I will bring in to have a chat is going to end up being our race winner of Jonathan Delaney. I want to have a chat with the driver who put on a brilliant performance here today. Jonathan Delaney, welcome into the broadcast booth, and congratulations on the victory here today, man. Happy to talk us through that race.
Yeah, it was a good race. It was pretty fun. Started out on the pole, got the win in stage 2, and then Bryson flipped the stage and was leader at the start of stage 2, and he was kind of able to hold us off for a little bit there. It's really hard to pass, and but yeah, I was had a real fun time racing him, trying to get around him. Eventually we got around to him, and then we flipped the stage there at the end of stage 2 so that we could have the last stage. I knew it was a bit of a risk. You're going to be out on 2-lap tires, but clean air and just being able to run your line and run your race is just so much more important than 2 laps tires. So that's what we did, and basically from there on out, we kept the lead, ran a good pace, and we were able to finish it out and take the win. So yeah, it was a good race. Like I said, I had a lot of fun. NASCAR's a lot of fun on road courses. You actually got to save tire and got to actually take care of them. And so it was really fun. So yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit throughout this show. The old scan of this track finally going to get a refresh in for season 4 of 2025 here in the sim. So I want to ask you about your thoughts on this very old scan of this track. It's certainly storied in the NASCAR world, but this scan, there are certain points of it that definitely you can definitely tell it's a bit up there in the years.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. You can just tell by all the track events, like the type of grandstands they have, and all the buildings and all that type of stuff that's on the track. You definitely tell it is on the older side, and track service too. You can just kind of tell it's on the older side, and I didn't know they were doing a refresh of this track, so I'm sure when they do, I think, like you said, in season 4, whenever, I'm sure it'll be really nice and make this track even better to drive and race. So, yeah, I mean, it looks a little weird with grass and dirt. It's a little weird, but so yeah, hopefully the new update that they're going to come out with is be a little better. So.
And after the conversation that myself and Dylan had here in the other commentary booth during this race, I'm hoping that they scan the track during the spring where the grass is all green and it doesn't just look all beige out there. So hopefully going to see that prettier scan for season 4 when they bring it out. But going to be seeing a race at Dover in 1 week's time here as we keep this series up and rolling. Are you going to be out there on the racetrack for that? And if so, what are your thoughts heading off into it?
No, not the Xfinity race, and I also won't be there for the Cup race either. So, be away out of town that weekend. But I wish everybody good luck, and yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to catch the broadcast here on Maconi Entertainment for those races. I think they're going to be some fun. But Jonathan, I will let you give any thanks or shout outs before we let you go and celebrate this win here in the Wine Country.
Yeah, shout out to everyone who runs this league: Bryson, Bobby, Jason, all those guys. Shout out to everyone who participates in this league. It was a good race. And shout out you guys for broadcasting this, both Friday and Saturdays, both the Cup and Xfinity car races. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to Maconi Sub Shop. They were that was the setup for the night, so a shout out to them. That's all I got.
I'll tell you what, I think the boss man himself, Mr. Jeff Maconi, is going to be quite happy about you're able to open up a can of whoop ass on the field with a Maconi shop setup. He didn't even have to pay a penny for that. At least I hope he didn't pay a penny for all that. He, I'm not sure if he slipped a bribe your way or what to say that, but that is out of my pay grade. But Jonathan, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Congratulations on the win, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack somewhere down the line.
Thank you, guys.
And that right there was Jonathan Delaney, brand new spokesperson for Maconi Setup Shop. And Dylan, I will let you have a chat with our P2 finisher of Adam Benefiel.
So we're going to drag Adam Benefiel in here. P2 tonight. Good job for the Team Connie Sim Performance Chevrolet. I think it was on rails, Adam. I got to ask you a question. Also, do you have a copy, by the way?
Yeah, I got you.
So you had a little misstep at the end of stage 1, but you're able to recover back to P2. How was it going through the field there?
Yeah, it was. I got a text message from a really good buddy of mine. He had a wreck, and I was paying attention, reading that, and I wasn't paying attention to where I was on the racetrack. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's real life happens. I get it, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great job to recover back to P2. Did you think depending on if you had one of the random yellows come in, depending on when it was, did you think you had a chance to get Jonathan Delaney there at the end?
I don't. I mean, I don't think so. I'm not a road racer. I'm
Well, we
I
couldn't
don't
tell
know.
tonight.
Yeah, I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've had 2 good weeks back to back with these cars. Should have won last week, but I don't even know what happened. I can't even remember what happened last week. But yeah, I mean the car was good. It just is a testament to what Ottinger's putting out, with the TCSP stuff. So we had a good night. I made my way back up, and then the third stage I got past Kurt right before stage, and I don't know what I did to piss him off, but he center punched the rear end of the car and gave me 30 seconds worth of damage, so I had to sit there and get that fixed and basically start all over again from the back of the pack. But yeah, by the time I got to second, I mean, I had a few laps where I could close in, and then I just pissed the tires off, and I just settled in and took what I had, especially after Bryson, I guess, had Ray Charles driving through turn 11. I don't know how in the world you hit that barrel, but, he did it. So, yeah, took what I had.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. You gotta. There's really 3 strategies to this. You're gonna have your guys that are up at the front that are gonna try to push for everything and try to win the race like that. Then you have a bunch of guys that just not gonna hit anything, keep it between the lines, and go as fast as possible while not doing those. And then you'll just have guys that are just trying to complete all the laps. It seemed like you're kind of in between that second spot there. I mean, you were. I don't think there was ever a part of the night after about lap 30 or lap 35 where you weren't inside the top 5. I mean, did you run into, other than that rear end damage, did you think that there were going to be more issues than there were tonight?
No, I mean, it kind of went, par for the course for what I thought. I just sat there. I try to race, I guess, patiently aggressive is my style, the best I could describe it. So I'm going to race, I was going to race for if the opportunity presented itself, and but I know my limitations, man. Like I said, I'm not a road course racer. I just take what I can get, and I'm ready to get back to a freaking oval. I'm so sick and tired of these road courses.
Before we cut you loose, you're probably sick and tired after running 79 laps here. Is there anyone you want to give a call to, give a shout out to?
Yeah, Bobby and Jason and Bryson for everything they do for FLCC all together, Friday night and Saturday night stuff. We got to be back here tomorrow night for the Cup cars. We got a good car for that. Everybody at Team Conti. Brandon Hastings and Cam Stone. Cam Stone didn't race tonight, but Brandon raced. He did pretty good. And then Dustin, he didn't race tonight, but he was up on the box for me. So he tuned her up, got it a lot better. The car was just too tight, so he got it dialed in and all that. And y'all for broadcasting, appreciate it. And y'all do a great job. I listen to broadcasts throughout the race. These guys know that, so I have it pulled up on the corner of my screen. I can hear y'all the whole time. So yeah, you were giving me a lot of crap for the cell phone deal. So
well, now that I know why, I feel bad, and I will apologize for that. But I mean, when our producer Howie said earlier, Adam Benefield missed pit road, he was on his phone. I'm like, oh, that's weird, as I was just talking about focusing. But I do apologize for that. Now that I know what it's for.
Hey, he's fine, dude. He's fine. Everybody's fine.
That's good.
That's y'all did. You're doing what you had to do. You got to sell something. You got to talk about something. Y'all gave me. It was a critical thing that
Yeah.
did screw my race up. So
I just
and
got the
I will
message from your voice chat, by the way. I just heard the voice chat, and I was like, "That's what I thought the story was."
yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool.
But
Delaney had it from the get go. Me and Bryson
Yeah.
were just acting like we could do something, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, you're just kind of showing a little bit, but and I will say this, real life comes first. So again, at the end of the day, this might ruffle some feathers. It is just a video game at the end of the day, but again, it's a very competitive video game, a simulation, if you will. But again, congratulations, Adam Benefield, finishing P2 tonight. Any final words before we cut you loose again?
No, we'll see y'all next week wherever we're at. I don't even know where we're at, but we'll see you there.
I believe that's Dover. Is that Ron? Is that correct? We were at Dover, I believe.
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
They are at Dover next week, and we will see you over in Delaware, Adam Benefield.
Thank you.
And there was Adam Benefield, the driver, who I will also apologize as well for clowning on him throughout that show, and respectfully doing so. Just simple little elbow jabs, nothing major. We're here to have a good time on these broadcasts. I think we do that every single week. But let's see if Joseph McWhorter will finally be able to have a chat with him at the end of this broadcast. Joseph McWhorter, welcome into the broadcast booth. Had those technical issues earlier on. Hopefully they have been fixed. Firstly, do you have a copy?
Yes, sir. I do. Sorry
Awesome.
about that. For some reason, Discord will randomly just switch my source to my VR headset, and I don't know why.
Gotcha, man. Don't worry. There have been times where I have missed out on doing the broadcast opener for a show because my microphone just decided not to work out for me at all. So don't worry. Happens to everybody, but man, that looked like a wild and wacky race at certain points in time here at Sonoma. Happy to talk to the challenges of running this race here tonight.
Yeah, it was. This track's really tough. It's tough even though we're in sims and stuff like that, it's still really tough on your body and stuff. And I'm actually kind of hurting right now because I had that snap in front of Adam there in stage 3, and when I caught it and brought the wheel back to the left, I pulled something in my back. Now my back's been killing me since then. So it's really challenging. This track's really challenging. Our setup. The guys at Outlier built a really good car. We're just too tight, and that seems to be the thing that we've really struggled with every road course that we've had so far this season. Is just being too tight and not very good on drive off. And but I mean, it was still really fast. I mean, we still made it all the way up there. We gave those guys a good fight, but I know Johnny's been working really hard on trying to get the road course racing setups better and getting that program better for us. So that was our biggest challenge. I did everything I could to try and stay up front with a really tight race car. We tried to make some changes, which helped a little bit, but I couldn't turn. I had to brake so much earlier than Adam, so much earlier than John. Like I was just really tight.
Yeah, man, I can imagine having a car that basically feels like you have a truck steering box heading off into it. I can imagine that's very, very tough around a track like this. We've got so many turns around here, 12 in all, and there are so many where you are having to push your car to the absolute limit and be comfortable with that race car as well to run fast. So I commend you for getting the podium at the end of this race with a car that you said you had some struggles with throughout today. But man, it was a good race from our perspective. Certainly hectic at certain points in time, but I'm personally looking forward to the fact that we're coming back to some ovals. Dover in 1 week's time. That's my hometown track. I'm about 2-ish hours north of it in the city of Philadelphia. So looking forward to that race. Are you looking forward to it potentially in 1 week's time?
I don't know. It really depends. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on the car. It seems like I don't really like concrete racetracks, to be honest with you. The only one that I really like is Nashville. Bristol, it kind of depends on whether I like it or not. Again, it kind of depends on the car. So I don't know. I know Johnny's going to work really hard on getting us a really good car for next week at Dover. And as long as we have a good car, I think we'll be up front. All we got to do is just go in, not hit the wall, and being able to save the right rear and save the right front, and hopefully come away with another really good finish next week.
Yeah, looking forward to that race in 1 week's time here for race number 20, really making some progress before we head off into the playoffs a little bit later on this year. But Joseph Gorder, you're already locked in with a win at Pocono a couple of months ago. And hey, if it makes you feel any better, the last time you raced at one of my hometown tracks, you were able to get a win. So let's see what you're able to do at Dover in 1 week's time. But well done on the podium. And before we let you go and have a well-earned rest after what had to have been a tough and very difficult to manage race here at Sonoma, I'll let you give any thanks or shouts out before we let you go.
Yeah, I want to thank Outlier Speed Co. Like I said, really good car tonight. We're constantly, building on everything that we've been doing so far this season, making the program better, making the road course cars better. So big shout out to Johnny and the boys over there. Red Camel Racing, they've been an amazing partner of mine for a really long time now. They have amazing equipment that you get to use in real life, fire suits, helmets, shoes, you name it, they got it. Go check them out at redcamelracing.com. 29 Graphics, beautiful paint schemes that you get to see each and every week. Go check them out at 29graphics.com. I forgot my other sponsors here. You guys for putting on the broadcast. All the admins, all the drivers for a great race tonight, and ready to get on to Dover and finish out these last few races of the regular season.
See, if you wanted me to there, Joseph, I could have broken out my harmonica, but I don't think nothing would let this audience go away any quicker. But Joseph, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth, man. Well done, the P3, and looking forward to seeing you hit the racetrack at Dover in 1 week's time.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your week.
Yep, you as well, man. Take care. That right there was the number 73 of Joseph McWhorter, your P3 finisher at the end of this race at Sonoma. Dylan, final thoughts before we wrap things up.
Man, it was just I was expecting a little bit more chaos than there was. There was a little stretch in the middle, but overall, it was a masterclass by Jonathan Delaney. But I think a lot of guys made up a lot of good positions and points. The one that I think is going to look back and wish that, he could have a redo is probably Bryson Hicksonbaugh. He went from running for sure top 3 to now he finished P20 tonight. But all in all, it was a real solid race and enjoyed working with you, Ron. It was the first time I'd actually got to talk to you. It was about a half hour before the race started. But yeah, we had a good time tonight here in wine country.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed the past 2.5 hours of listening to the ranting and ravings of a crazy person on these broadcasts here on Maconi Entertainment. And hopefully all of you tuning into this broadcast were able to enjoy it as well. And if you have to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action that we have here at Maconi Entertainment. We have got you booked when it comes to racing action just about every single day here. Tomorrow, you'll be able to catch the action from the full-length Cup Challenge running at this exact same racetrack with some of these exact same racers. Door-to-Door Sim Racing League will run at Sonoma as well this upcoming Sunday night. On Mondays, we'll be able to catch the action from the weekly Strength of Field race for the Formula 1600 series. They're going to be running at Watkins Glen, which is quite interesting because the Red Bull ring is in the thumbnail, which is not as above my pay grade. That'll be at 3:45 on Monday afternoon. The Racers Elite Truck League will be running at Charlotte this upcoming Tuesday. So whole lot of stuff to look forward to here on Maconi Entertainment. Gives you a good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of it. But as for this broadcast here tonight for race number 19 of the Friday Night Lights Xfinity Series here at Sonoma, that will do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Dylan Connolly joining me in the commentary booth, and Howie Burrows doing a wonderful job working on the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you also very much for tuning into this broadcast of Maconi Entertainment tonight, and we hope to see you